Hey everyone, you're listening to the official podcast of 4playernetwork.com. Check us out at that address for everything you need to know about our community, monthly giveaways, and nightly live streams. You can even support us on Patreon at patreon.com/4player. And last but not least, you can catch the live recordings of these podcasts every single Thursday night on our Twitch channel. We hope to see you there. Enjoy.
I've had 2 beers before I came on the podcast. Let's go!
I can tell. You had no idea how awkward it was to come home and not have a mimosa first thing in the morning.
Oh,
because that was my life every day for a week.
To it.
Yeah,
that's the most bougie thing you've ever said.
Well, dude, so hold on. So yes, definitely bougie, but like I said, before I left, it was my first time at an all-inclusive, and the people that work there know if they treat you well, you'll give them a tip or something. And so fucking Felix was like constantly like bringing me mimosas and like, oh, let me refill that for you.
Just
and
saucing
then,
you up.
Fucking right? You have no fucking idea. I had more shots last Saturday night than I have had in the past like 5 years, because fucking Frederico every time he'd look over at me, he'd make eye contact, he'd be like, and he would just walk over with a tray of shots, and I got to the point where I would just walk away from him. I was like, dude, fucking stop. I can only do so many goddamn tequila shots in one
Get
night.
that bread for Frederico.
You know what this sounds like, Nolan? This sounds like college Nolan. This sounds like...
Dude, it was way worse than this. Honestly, probably the last time was Battle Shots. That was the last time I've ever had this many shots.
Ah, yes, Battle Shots. Never doing that again. All right. I think that's a good place to start. Hey, everyone. Welcome to 4Player Podcast. This is episode 712. It's March 3rd, 2022. I'm your host this evening, Nick Henderson, and I am joined by Brad Simons.
Hello.
Nolan Hedstrom.
How's it going, everybody?
Christopher Davis.
Hello.
Ed Mitchell.
I'm here with the hot takes.
And Crispy.
Hello,
Crispy
I'm still last.
No, I specifically left you at the end just because now I've seen kind of how it's started to creep into your psyche being last.
Why did I even show up?
I don't know. The last person to show up is going to be last introduced on the podcast. That is the new rule.
Also were the last one to show up tonight, so...
That's
what maybe you should be on time. Maybe you should stop playing Magic the Gathering before the podcast.
That's fair.
Your performance is in check here, Crispy. We have a conversation about your performance. You may be in line for a demotion.
Yeah.
I think Ed is volunteering for this.
I will never have that conversation for this website. I will fucking quit at the first sign of one of you even looking at me sideways. I'm done.
Crispy, about those TPS reports.
Yeah, welcome to your yearly performance review.
Yeah.
God, man, can you imagine if we did yearly performance reviews?
Oh,
it would all be terrible.
Why are we talking about this?
I don't know. It seemed funny. We haven't done a podcast in 2 weeks. Nolan was in Mexico, and quite honestly, last week felt like playing Elden Ring. So tonight we're back. It's been 2 weeks. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk a lot about Elden Ring. We're going to talk a little bit about Horizon Forbidden West, which, if I remember correctly, I'm not the only person here, right? Ed, you've been playing a little bit of it? Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool. So I'm not alone there. That's wonderful. Brad's smiling, and it's never a good thing.
Well, no, I mean, he says he's bringing the hot takes. This one has potential.
I thought
Horizon, Pac-Man sign, Elden Ring.
Oh no. We'll see what happens. But before we get into the meat of the conversation tonight, I just want a quick reminder to everybody out there who listens to our show. Game of the Year videos are out. All but one of them anyways. Chris Davis is still coming, but
it's on the way.
We got 2 videos from Brad, top 10 for myself. We got one from Ed. They're out there. You can find them on 4playernetwork.com. You can find them on Twitter, on YouTube, and Discord. They're everywhere. We appreciate and love each and every one of you who take the time to watch our videos. We have fun making them. Who doesn't love lists? I love lists. Lists are great. Go watch our videos. But anyways, enough about that. Let's do it. Let's jump into it.
Kirby. Let's go. Kirby.
Up, Brad. No, we're not.
I don't know. I
kind
of like the idea of just getting Kirby out of the way.
We could get it out of the way. I don't have much to say.
Oh my
We're
God,
starting with
Brad, why do
Kirby.
you-
We're talking about Kirby.
All
Kirby
right, roll the
sucks. Kirby sucks. Roll the
Kirby
footage.
I'm rolling it.
Y'all ready?
I was
Footage right here.
Kirby
no one's
sucks.
no one's literally playing it while we record this podcast. Apparently,
It sucks. Kirby sucks. I don't like it. It's boring.
Wow.
So
Is
I
that
played
really
the demo. There's a couple levels. Granted, they are probably the first 2 levels of the game. Actually, I think they are.
To clarify, this is Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
Forgotten
Correct,
Land. I
right?
think that's the first time I heard the subtitle for this game. The
That's
new
what it's
Kirby.
called.
The
I had to
Kirby.
Google it.
Would
Kirby.
y'all say it's forgettable?
Kirby 3D Land, if you will. This is a level-based 3D Kirby game, but it kind of has that that Super Mario 3D Land perspective, right?
Mhm.
You're not really like looking around an environment like Mario Odyssey or
Yeah.
Mario 64. It's just that, and it's level based, you know, and that's all fine because I think like Mario 3D World is an excellent game. This is kind of boring. And I don't think it's very all that amazing. I mean, it's fine, but Kirby doesn't really move like Mario. Kirby has always been like a little slow and floaty by nature. And you do get cool power ups, and in some of the later Kirby games, it's kind of fun to use those powers. But they simplified that here, I guess, in the move to 3D. Like
Mhm.
when you're playing like Superstar or whatever, you're doing like crazier moves, right? Like double taps and stuff for like dash attacks and shit, right? Here, there's not much of that. It's kind of like attack. There's like a charge attack. There's like an air attack, and that's basically it. And it's real easy. And there's 2 difficulty modes. There's like casual or whatever, and then there's wild mode. And they're like, this is the harder Kirby experience. And I was like, oh, finally. One of my big problems with Kirby, there's always a lot of personality, fun power ups and stuff, but they're always so fucking easy. The exception of like, Canvas Curse and Rainbow Curse. Those can be really tricky. But Kirby always, it's a fucking baby game, right? And I thought Wild Mode was them finally saying like, hey man, we're bringing Kirby into 3D.
Gonna
We're
be
going to do it.
real.
We're going to do it right. No, it's still a fucking joke. At least the first couple levels, and the first boss. So I don't know if it's going to get trickier or like more exciting. And some of the stuff I see in the trailer, like the most recent trailer, looks pretty cool. But man, these first couple of levels are just kind of They're just kind of there. They don't. I mean, it in terms of like. I mean, it's sub like Sackboy's like a more exciting platformer than this. I mean, it's just it's not fun. It's kind of boring. And when you beat the demo, you get the evolved versions of all the power-ups. Now, that's something you do throughout as you progress through the game.
Can you
go back to
define
the hub world.
evolved version?
Yeah. So I think throughout the course of the regular game, you go back to the hub world and you upgrade your abilities, and it turns your like sword guy into like a better sword guy, right? Like he has. God, there's not even that much. I mean, it's just kind of like he has a bigger sword. The cutter like he throws like chakrams, and there's like 2 of them now. But it's still like the same basic moveset, more or less. Like not even that evolves, and I'm pretty sure there's just one evolution. The thing is, when you beat the demo, they just let you play through the levels again with the evolved versions of all the power ups. Just to like try them out, and I was kind of excited. I was like, oh, maybe here's going to be some of that depth that they added in some of the power-ups and later Kirby games. And no, it's just a bigger sword. And look, I'm kind of disappointed here. I like Kirby. I don't know if I was expecting this to be open world, but I was kind of expecting like a Mario Odyssey style thing where you go to like a world and you're in there for a while, and there's kind of like it's Metroidvania-y elements. If that's in this game, it ain't here. These levels aren't very long. They're not very challenging. There's not a lot of stuff in the way. There's not a lot of resistance. You're just sort of wandering around, hitting dudes, looking for little secrets. What's up, Ed?
So like the beginning levels of like Mario 3D World or like basically any Mario game, they're pretty like simple.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So like,
for sure.
in in those final levels in 3D World are like really cool
Impossible.
and
They're
really
impossible. Yeah.
they're hard and they're like challenging in like a mental way, not just like physically. And so like, do you foresee any of that happening here, or is there just not enough there mechanically that you don't think it's possible?
So like mechanically, I mean, obviously, even though the first level of Mario is simple, he has like, a sprint or whatever. He can wall jump. I mean, he has stuff that he can. You could see
Cone
the
thing is
potential.
pretty cool.
Huh?
The cone thing is pretty cool. How it's like you
Okay,
can
yeah. So
strike
like
downwards and stuff.
there's kind of like a cappy mechanic where
Yeah.
you can like, but it's so like scripted and obvious the way you use those
fair enough.
things. Again, these are just the first couple of levels, but it I have no doubt in my mind that it'll get more challenging and more interesting. But like at a baseline, this is not even like as exciting as like the first couple levels of 3D World. I was really sort of unimpressed with this.
Okay,
It seemed like
I have a question
baby game.
and 2 follow-ups.
Okay.
Who are you?
Three
Who are you?
I got 3 questions.
Okay, fine. Fuck it. Who? Okay, so you're playing with somebody on the screen. Is it?
Yeah, that's Henry. He doesn't know.
Oh,
what
that's
he's
Henry.
doing.
Okay, so this.
He only plays tablet games. He doesn't understand what.
We all knew this, Chris. and you
I'm
just
not. I'm
happened
not
to call
passing
out the
judgment on
kid.
Henry's capabilities. He's 4 years old. He's barely got hand-eye coordination.
This is the
But,
second
like-
time I played this level, and I played it with him.
Well, I'm asking, like, does this game come with like online co-op? Because if it's only same screen co-op, it looks like it's really gonna suck for the second player, because the camera is programmed to never go off of Kirby.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the same thing with like Mario 3D World.
And Mario
Yeah, but
Galaxy.
Mario
remember
3D
that?
World
Yeah.
feels like a little more zoomed out. Here, it does seem like so close that it really sticks with Kirby, and like even though Henry's doesn't know
Well,
what he's
hold
doing.
on, Brett. I would argue that that's almost like a better thing, because oftentimes, like, so sorry, sorry. Let me make a different comparison. To a recent co-op game, local, that I played was Sackboy's Big Adventure, and the frustration there was it seemed to often focus on the wrong person, which would get the other person killed, and that was very frustrating. And in a game like that, similar to this, whereas very linear, you probably should be focusing on the person who's farther ahead, not the person who's farther behind. Because the person who's farther behind can see everything in front of them, but the person farther ahead can't. And so when you cut off the camera, if you're doing a left or right thing, the person who's behind is on the left side of the screen, person who's ahead is on the right side of the screen. Well, if you put those players on the very edges of the screen, the person farther ahead has so much disadvantage. And you might say, oh, we'll slow down. Well, sometimes there are levels that are like auto-scrolling, or you're on some track that's like moving you or something. I know I'm kind of going off the rails, but in my opinion, you should always be kind of focusing on the person who's potentially farther ahead.
Yeah, no,
Or
I'm
zoom the
fine with
camera
them.
out so that person is not on the fucking edge of the screen.
Yeah, no,
Does that make sense?
I'm agreeing with you. I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think it's fine that it's focusing on Kirby, but things are just a little too zoomed in. So if Henry is even off just a little bit far away, he's getting teleported right to me. The co-op seems super low stakes, and for him especially, and it doesn't. I mean, in the single player, it also seems really low stakes. It's just there's just not much. There's not much resistance. There's not much
that certainly
friction.
seems
You just
to be
waddle
that seems
around.
to be like Nintendo's approach to co-op a lot.
Yeah,
is,
no, I mean,
low stakes. You know what I mean?
don't play this fucking co-op. I don't think this is designed well as a co-op game, but I'm saying as a single player game, it also seems it seems a little budget. Like, I'm not surprised that we just kind of heard about this and it's already coming out like in a few weeks, because I mean, maybe Kirby's always kind of gets the budget into the stick, but this, let's move on. I'm just saying this was kind of disappointing. It's a baby game. It was kind of boring. Maybe it gets more exciting. I might rent it, but I already don't trust reviews on this shit. It's going to be like a Nintendo bias, and people are going to be like, oh, it's colorful and charming. No, this shit was boring, man.
So
I don't know. We'll see.
I did have a couple questions. I'm definitely not a Kirby stan, but I have been a fan of, especially some of the older ones. When I was younger, I played some of the ones on 64. I enjoyed. I think they're called like power combos, like when you can combine two different abilities into a better one. So I was looking forward to this one. I was hoping it was going to be more Bowser's Fury than 3D Land, but it seems like that's not the case. And honestly, from what I'm hearing from you, it seems like it's more like Captain Toad than even like, well, in the sense that it's just like super simple and like it kind of, I don't want to say boring, but just like
it's not swinging for the fences in terms of like complexity.
not at all.
No.
Yeah. And that was my fear, and I was hoping based on what they were showing it was going to be better, and it seemed like what they showed was pretty okay.
We talked about it a little bit
But
in Discord. Like a lot of people kind of assumed. I thought they had actually said this, but apparently they didn't. It was just kind of assumed based on what was shown that a lot of people were expecting this to be kind of open. I mean, even the title almost kind of suggests that you're going to be exploring like the Forgotten Land, like it's going to be like Breath of the Wild, but Kirby. You know what I mean? And it certainly is not that, obviously. So I was a little surprised to hear that when Brad said that earlier today. And as someone who's never played Kirby before,
brings up the best point though. He really does though. Like the first couple levels in like Mario 3D World, they're fucking bad and boring. They are better than this, and by the time I'm doing like post game levels, that shit's crazy. That's good. So I'm not throwing this game in the trash can yet because lots of Nintendo games have bad first couple of levels. So we'll see. Let's leave it at we'll see.
I'll tell you this game launches on the same day as Ghostwire Tokyo.
I don't think Kirby's worried about the weird Tango game.
They're playing to different audiences.
No. I'm not saying they're going to be competing for sales. I'm just saying I think at least among this group, it's probably going to be competing for attention. You know what I mean? Like, unless anybody, is anybody here going to pick this up on day one? I don't see it.
Unless reviews come out and give it like a 10 out of 10 and say it's better than Mario Odyssey, which I highly doubt. Not going to pick this up day one.
What if they say it's better than Elden Ring?
I will eat my sock.
Okay.
If they say this is better than Elden Ring.
That's a nice low stakes bet there. You could eat a sock and survive. You'd be okay. All right. Let's do it. Let's get into the meat of this podcast. We got Kirby out of the way. Everybody here, with the exception of Chris Davis, has been playing Elden Ring, right? This is and we are fully aware going into this conversation that there are 6 of us here on this podcast, and we're all excited and eager to talk about Elden Ring because this has obviously been one of the most highly anticipated games for quite a while. And there's a lot to talk about. So much so, I'm not entirely sure where we want to start. I know we want to kind of avoid just getting into like stories and like war stories, as Brad liked to call them before the show. We kind of want to focus on, mechanically speaking, like how has this game evolved from previous From Software games? What's the first impression? What did George R.R. Martin contribute to this game? I have zero clue. He wrote some item descriptions.
He named Stormvale Castle. He named Stormvale.
He like the background lore of the game was mostly him, right?
I guess.
But
that's what they said. That's what they've said.
I don't think he wrote any sort of like narrative anything. I think he wrote like on his blog or whatever he was talking about. He basically just like wrote the World Bible or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I don't know. What does that even fucking mean?
Weekend.
Yeah,
it's honestly in the
and he did it like 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I say,
in the grand scheme of things, it's not that important. Because
it's not. But can I say, I find it a little disappointing. I was hoping the vibe would be a little different because of his involvement. But it's super soulsy.
Yeah, no, it is for all intents and purposes. Dark Souls 4. I feel like this feels like a natural extension. I think of the Souls series.
For
sure. The lore that he contributed to feels very From Software in almost every sense of the word.
Yeah, it's definitely more Dark Souls than like Bloodborne or Sekiro or.
Just you wait.
It's kind of funny. It's like it's those games that the games that preceded this feel like more of a departure for the studio, I think, from a fiction standpoint, than this game. This feels very much like an extension of Dark Souls, but
that's a huge disservice. They're doing something super significant here. fiction
absolutely.
aside.
I'm not trying to downplay it. I certainly don't want to start the conversation with on a negative note. I'm just, it's one of it is one of those things where it's like they talked about this game for so long, and the first thing out of their mouth about this game when they announced it was George R. R. Martin is like
Yeah.
in partnership with George R. R. Martin. So
Mhm.
to some extent, it feels a little bit like a bait and switch almost. I'm not saying he didn't
Yes.
contribute; he obviously did. But now that we've played a significant chunk of it, it feels a lot like his name was kind of used to
Yeah,
get
sure.
people's attention.
Yeah.
Which
Of
is,
course.
That was pretty
Literally,
clear.
that was so long
immediately.
ago that it doesn't even matter, right?
That was immediately pretty clear though too. I feel like I don't like weren't we making jokes about that shit back then? We were like, yeah, he
Yeah.
probably just like wrote like a couple little item descriptions, and they just wanted to get his name because he's famous. Like
the joke right now is that he's the one writing all the messages
on
that you read in the
the
world.
tri-finger butthole.
But anyways, we've most of us here have spent a pretty. I mean, I think in the grand scheme of things, a lot of us are still pretty early, quote unquote, in the game.
I mean,
I don't know. It's hard. It's
I
hard
play
to
a
gauge.
lot.
I am
play a lot.
definitely early. I will claim that right now. I'm definitely very early. I've gotten to that bridge boss, and then I
Right
felt
outside
kind
of
of
Stormvale.
yeah, and I felt kind of aimless a little bit until I beat him. Like I threw my head against him like a million times on Sunday. Eventually, like gave up and was like, let me just go explore a little bit more. Went back to him at the end of the night, beat him, and then I was like, okay, do I explore Stormvale Castle or do I like explore out in the world a little bit more? And I wasn't sure where to go.
Honestly, I think
what?
that's a good place to start because
Well,
this
yeah,
isn't
what-
this is open. This isn't for the big thing that is different about this game is obviously it is Souls via, but like through the lens of like an open world game, and as a result, I don't think many people really wrap their head around like even their
Yeah.
approach to like open world
Right.
design is quite a bit different in terms of like
It-
they're not pointing you in a certain direction all the time.
Yeah, I mean,
So
in their own way, the Souls games are kind of like on rails is like a bad thing generally speaking, but like they have they're guiding you in a direction just by virtue of the way their worlds are designed, right?
I would say it's almost like a wagon wheel or something like that, where it's like
Right.
it's interconnected, but for all intents and purposes, one of the spokes has a lock on it, and you got to go down a different one to get a key, and then you can backtrack to the beginning and now use
Yeah,
that key to go
exactly.
down. And so while it is all connected, it is definitely not an open world like Elden Ring.
yeah,
Right.
it's open exploration, but not an open world by any stretch of the imagination. And I think all of their games have been designed a little bit differently. Like the wagon wheel approach that you mentioned, Nolan, I think fits best with like Dark Souls 2.
Mhm.
And Dark Souls 1 and 3, I think, adopt a different methodology as far as the design goes as well. But like, regardless of how it's done, after about an hour or two of playing each one of those games, you kind of have a feel for the flow and how the world
Right.
is structured. And this game, played it for 20 hours now, and I'm still kind of just I feel aimless a lot.
Yes,
And I
yes.
don't use the word aimless to
It's not like necessarily a
I'm
bad
using it as a
thing, right?
negative.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's
But
up,
but
Brett?
I feel it too.
I will say that when I found, we knew that this was going to be an open world Souls game. I thought the world was going to be like completely wild and unique and still kind of weird and not like any other open world games, which in a lot of ways, in good ways, it isn't. It's better, right? I think this is one of the best open worlds of any game I've played.
Oh, yeah.
But what I was surprised is that there are still some like elements to the world, like some nuggets of consistency to kind of like to make the player feel a little more comfortable about exploring such a big space, right? Like for example, when you see like those little golden trees, like the little small gold trees, you know there's going to be a golden seed there, right? When you see a church, you know there's probably going to be the sacred
Sacred
tear or
tear,
whatever you
yeah.
need to make your flask stronger, right? So there are elements in the world that are repeated enough, in not in a way of like reused assets feeling, but in a way of like
It's guiding.
They're touch
guiding the
points.
player, like teaching the player like a language that they need to know to explore
Yeah.
that world. Like
Right,
for
totally.
example, when you go underground and there's like a catacombs, there's going to be several catacombs, but you know that you're always going to be able to find those like flowers you need to like upgrade your spirits. Or when you go into a mine, you know you're always going to be able to get ore to upgrade your weapons, right? The stones, the smith stones or
Right.
whatever,
Smith
right?
stones, yeah.
So those like repeated elements do kind of like paint a picture of like consistent elements in the world, which I was actually not expecting because Souls games aren't really like that. They're just like weird, different shit all over the place, which this game definitely has on a massive scale, I will say. But it's cool that it has those elements to kind of ground it all.
It's
And
certainly
at first it seemed weird and it did seem kind of aimless, but when I started seeing like those certain things repeated and I start to understand, I was like, oh, this is cool. This feels good.
it,
Definitely
it's
getting those
certainly
feelings for sure.
yeah, it takes its general approach to creating an open space for you to explore feels very fresh, despite the fact that like it is in a lot of ways building off of like it's taken kind of like the foundation of like what an open world game is today, but like tweaked it in a lot of really interesting ways to make it feel less guided. I mean, you don't. This is not like the traditional open world games nowadays is like you have a map, you can see it, there's a certain number of icons that are just kind of there for you at first to kind of give you direction, like whether you've discovered them or not. It kind of like we'll talk about it with Horizon a little bit, like which is a totally different approach to open world,
Yeah.
where like it tells you where like caves are or whatever. So it's like even when you don't really know what you're doing, you can say I'm just going to latch onto this and I'm going to go explore it, and maybe that'll kind of it'll start a ripple effect and I'll figure out what I'm going to do from that point. This is like it drops you into this world and there's nothing on the map at all, and
No
things
quest
are
log or
yeah,
anything.
there's no quest log. Like there was a lot of hubbub this week when Jason Schreier tweeted about this right before launch, but talking about his time with the game and how he recommended starting your own like journal right while you're playing the game to keep track of things. And I think a lot of people had kind of a negative reaction to that because they were like, well, that sounds really frustrating and tedious. Like, why would I have to do that myself? Why is the game not doing that for me? And I didn't think one way or the other about it, but after about like 5 or 6 hours of playing the game, I was like, I'm going to give it a shot and just see what kind of happens naturally when I was doing that. And I started like making a checklist of like, okay, I went into this cave and I got stomped, so I'm going to come back to this. But I like prefer writing notes about like the name of the dungeon because it tells you the name of what you found, right? So you can kind of always remember it. I mark it on my map and I say, all right, this cave I went into and I got stomped by a giant crawfish. What the fuck? And those became my notes. And after I had like 4 or 5 things I was looking at, I was like, I'm reading my notes. I was like, this shit is wild. Like it just kind of paints this picture of this like ridiculously vast and diverse world. And it's just a really cool way to kind of think about exploring.
Taking notes is a sign that the game is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about like The Witness. Like when I was writing shit down for The Witness and stuff, which is obviously you're writing stuff down for a very different reason, but like getting you to kind of think about things in an obtuse way outside of the game itself is it's refreshing and it's different for Souls. Like I never did that with any of the previous Souls games, and that just kind of indicates it, like it paints a picture of how different this world feels, I think.
Yeah, I guess like in contrast for me, like I still have never played Dark Souls 1 through 3, right? But I played the Demon Souls remake and I played Sekiro and Bloodborne, right? So like in all 3 of those games, as soon as I jumped in, I was like addicted very quickly to the loop. Whether it was the world design that made it addicting or like beating that first boss was very addicting. And you don't really that beating that first boss feeling, I feel like you're not getting there because the game is guiding you towards that bridge boss so obviously.
Well, they are.
It seems like, right? It's like you need something a little more like that boss is fairly difficult, especially for like a melee player.
Are we talking about in Elden Ring? We're talking about Margit or whatever.
Yeah,
Margit. Yeah. No, he's brutal.
He's very difficult for a melee player. Like for a magic player, there's maybe elements of like easy because he kind of hangs back a lot. But like as I only had 2 swords, and I had a shield too, but like even the shield, I felt like I wasn't able to do anything with, right? So,
Right.
like I almost feel like it needed, for me at least, a slightly easier boss as the first like kind of drip feed
It's
in order for
very
me to feel like
it's very
feel like the
strange that
same kind of things.
it's very strange that the
So
game does this, right? That it guides you very quickly. You can get to that Margit boss,
Yeah,
which is like
it's
impossible.
obvious.
And the game
That's
is
the
telling,
obvious destination. It seems like.
and it's not just that. When you get out of the first little cave, the tree sentinel's there, and
yeah.
he is like a
Right.
boss that you're not even
Oh,
close to being
I
ready for.
still, yeah, I
I
still
know.
can't.
So,
I don't think I
so
could
like
take him right now.
the game is trying. I don't know what the so like with the tree sentinel, I feel like the game is saying, "Hey, look, you're not. This is a big world. You're not going to be able to face everything right away. You're just going to have to go in a different direction." But the story points you right to that first boss, who is like one of the hardest things in that whole on that whole part of the world,
So
and I
something
don't
I would say
understand that.
in that regard, Brad, is while the story does point you there, it it doesn't stop you from going anywhere else.
Of
And
course,
Yeah.
yeah,
honestly, like when the game was like, "Hey, bud, go towards this castle," I was like, "Nah, man, fuck that. You see this shit over here? I'm gonna go check that out." And so I kind of started exploring other areas. Before I
Right.
even got to Margot, Robbie, I had already gone through 2 different dungeons.
Yeah.
Like there's small like one-off dungeons and defeated the bosses in there. Fought a couple of different dudes in the open world that like didn't respond, so clearly they were something.
Yeah.
But like
That
I
is true.
didn't even want to like necessarily do that until I kind of felt comfortable saying, okay, I think I kind of want to go back to the story now. I've kind of explored a few little areas. I've gone to some different places. I've gotten some cool equipments and talismans and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll
yeah.
go do it. And
I did the
and
same.
maybe because of that, I beat him like on my third try, maybe
Right.
because I had kind of already gotten some better weapons and upgraded some of them, and had gotten a better feel for the world. I do feel like if I would have just rushed right towards him, I probably would have got my ass handed to me, like like Ed was saying, like 30, 40 times.
I think
Yeah.
Ed
It
made a good
happens.
point too, because I'm primarily a magic user, and I like I think I beat Margot in like 4 or 5 tries, and I didn't think too much about it. But yeah, it totally had to do with the fact that I'm standing back a lot more
Right. Yeah.
and
And,
shooting
and
stuff out.
and no, and you make a great point, because the first like named boss where the bar fills up the whole bottom was that wolf boss that you fight like in
Yeah.
that that little mini dungeon right there. It just
Mhm.
didn't feel like a big boss. It felt like a mini boss kind of thing, right? And so it was a
Yeah.
little the feeling didn't get me there, because it wasn't after I like explored this entire like intricate area and found him.
So
I am like right now I'm in that the kind of southern Limgrave area where there's like a tree and you fight. There's like a boss there that is named or whatever, and so that's kind of where I
Mhm.
am now. And that's after like I beat the bridge boss, and then I kind of like circled back and started exploring a little bit more. And I wonder like I think there's no problem with the world design like on the whole, but I do wonder like should the game have like guided you more in the direction of exploring rather than obviously pointing you towards that boss, because that's what it seemed like. It was like that's where you're supposed to go.
yeah, I think
Right.
there's a certain amount of like people are going to. I think initially a lot of people are going to feel like they're doing it wrong because of that exact thing. Because
Yeah.
the game wants you to like what makes this game unique is that like if you hit a wall, you can hit a wall like four. You can hit a boss and like try 4 or 5 times, and if it's not working out, unlike most other Souls games, I mean you can kind of do this in some Souls games, whatever, but like you have an entire world to explore outside of that. So you can just be like, I'm writing this down on my list. I'll come back to this fucker later, and you can just go off and find
Mhm.
something else. But I'm also thinking about like Breath of the Wild. When we talked a lot about the things about that, while we were all very positive about that game, obviously the things that I remember us being like harping on were things like you find all the little what do they call them, um, the shrines that you do
Mhm.
Right.
the
Yeah.
like mini temples or whatever throughout the world,
Mhm.
and they were all kind of samey, and that kind of made up the bulk of the game. And if I
Looked
wanted to paint a
samey.
picture, if I wanted to paint a picture for someone who maybe hasn't played Elden Ring yet, but maybe has played Breath of the Wild as like a touch point, like think about the world being super vast like that, and you have all these shrines hidden everywhere, but they're all kind of the same. But in Elden Ring, like before I got to Margot, like Nolan was saying, I went into I think 4 different
Yeah.
just hit like I went down into a cave. I found like a staircase. I followed it, ended up in like a little small dungeon, and then I
A
stumbled
chalice
into
dungeon, if you will.
yeah, a chalice dungeon, if you will. And then I stumble into a boss, and without like a big dramatic cutscene or anything, it's just like, but they all kind of tell stories. Like I found this like man beast that was like, it looked like a werewolf or a man that had like
Right.
turned into a wolf or something, but living amongst the other wolves or whatever. And I was like, this is wild. And that was kind of what the equivalent, like that is like the closest thing to like the shrines in Breath of the Wild, but they all give you bosses and equipment and talismans. What's that, Nolan?
So what I was going to say in that regard is if we're going to compare this to Breath of the Wild, you could, and you do, in Breath of the Wild, the game essentially is constantly telling you exactly where to go. And you know, you talk to someone, they're like, "Oh, here's where you go. Here's a pointer on your map. Go do it." Nothing
There's a
makes
quest
you do
log
it.
item.
Exactly. So the problem is this game doesn't really have that quest log. You don't have like a list of your missions. And I feel like because this is truly the first open world Souls game, while most Souls players could, you know, veterans of the series would have no trouble, anyone kind of coming to this new, or maybe they only played the Demon Souls remake, and now this is their newest like experience with the series, I probably think they'd feel pretty daunted just being dropped in this open world, and
Oh
maybe
yeah,
even
totally.
frustrated because Demon Souls is so linear. And then you come
Yeah.
to this, and it literally is this just vast open world. And so I think they do a good job of essentially pointing you, saying, hey, if you want to progress, go this direction. But at no point does it ever say, like, hey, you know, there's no Navi being like, hey, aren't we supposed to be doing that thing?
Yeah.
Like, it never tells you again once you've been told the one time.
You eventually get to a point where you kind of figure out the like what it wants you to do to progress the central story, right? It tells you, it's almost like a Zelda game in that it says there are these like 5 places with these 5 like epic, you know, people that you should
And they
seek
kind of
out.
tell you that from the beginning, honestly. Like if you understand what they're telling you when they're like introducing you to the world, they're like, there are 5 people or whatever, or there are 4 like demigods or whatever, and it's like, okay, so those are my targets, right?
The guy that
But
eats poop.
But it doesn't tell you the order. It doesn't tell you
Yeah.
where they are. It's just like, you'll find them eventually. Trust me.
You know what's cool though? A lot of people think that like Margit and like Stormvale Castle is like a big like barrier to like exploring the rest of the world, but you can just walk right under Stormvale Castle up and just go up into the North Territories. I was like way north before I ever even beat Stormvale Castle.
Yeah,
which
and
is
so
cool.
that's a great point, Brad, because one of my coworkers this week told me that he hasn't been Margit. He's level 70.
Okay, that's weird.
Wow.
He's explored like the entire map. Like I think what happened is he opened one of those chests that like teleported you to another place, and he was just like, "Oh well, I'm here now. I might as well just explore." And so that's just his life. And now he's level 70. And like we're like, so you don't have a second talisman slot? He's like, yeah, I was reading that you can get a second talisman slot, and I just don't have one. I was like, what? You're level 70, dude?
Yeah,
But
well,
that is,
you know,
that is what makes this fascinating.
It is beautiful. It's beautiful. It absolutely
one of the
is.
reasons I also waited a long time before I did Margit is because people wouldn't shut up about him on social media of like how hard he was and how scary he was and how he's such a tough first boss, and there was like it became meme status, and I was like, oh, I better spend some time exploring. So by the time I got back, I just stomped him right away. It was that sort of thing. And,
Well, the funny thing is 2 of my deaths against Margit was me accidentally not paying attention and rolling off the side of the cliff.
Yeah.
Because like the area he's in is kind of narrow.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, I fucking hate these goddamn bird things.
Oh
These
yeah.
things are fucking pieces of shits.
May I
Just
ask
putting that out
2
there.
questions?
Yes. Yes, you may.
The
Sure.
first one, I think this would be a good discussion point. I would like to ask whether the ability to jump now has expanded like the verticality and the map design.
God.
Oh, yeah.
Really good for exploration.
Crazy,
For
to a
sure.
crazy degree.
And the shorter, easier to answer question is, why does it seem like
That was a short answer.
Well, I mean, no, I want you to talk about it, but the second question is easier to answer. Why is it that this they're never going to make a good ranged combat formula. It looks like ranged combat once again fucking sucks at a
No,
Souls
you're
game.
wrong.
No.
You're wrong. You're wrong.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
I'm
You're
wrong.
wrong.
I'm
You're
wrong.
wrong.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
Okay.
Like range is more viable now than it's ever been, and it's awesome.
But let's talk about the first question though, because jumping not only adds a lot to exploration. By the way, your horse can double jump, and the horse adds a lot to exploration. But it
And
adds,
you can't. Your horse can jump back.
it adds a lot to the combat too. I think the
is
combat
so different
is the
now.
best it's been. It is well, Sekiro is such a different thing, but it's definitely the best like Souls combat there's been. I think there's so much more like variety. I feel like I'm using like all aspects of my kit and my build so much more. I'm constantly going from range to up close. I'm using jumping attacks. Like there's a
Fighting
new
on
like
the horse. Like I run circles around
yes,
dudes and
there's
like hit them.
mounted combat. There's a new like hidden. It's not. It's like a hidden stagger meter, right? Where if you just use a bunch of like R1 attacks, like you would in another Souls game, like you almost never trigger it. But if you use a lot of like jump attacks and R2 attacks, and guard attacks, like you have a move where if you after guard if you hit like the R2, you'll do like a follow-up attack. And those attacks will like fill up this stagger meter to the point where like the enemy will go down and you can kind of do like a critical, like, you know, like the backstab animation, but you can do it from the front. So it encourages you to not just use the same type of move like over and over again, you know, your same simple like slash attack over and over again in combat. So I'm finding I'm just sort of like moving around the combat space so much more dynamically because I want to trigger these
Dude,
maneuvers.
it's so satisfying when you kind of start to read like an enemy or a boss's moveset and you know they're going in for a side swipe and you just jump over it. It is so satisfying to just do a little bunny hop right over their fucking swipe.
It's like
'Cause
hitbox
something you
porn a little
couldn't
bit.
ever do that before.
Like
Yeah.
those like ground AoE attacks that Margaret do.
Mhm.
Like when I saw that you could just jump to avoid those. Like if you just jump at the same time, it doesn't hit you at all. It like blew my fucking mind.
Hitbox stuff is really good. You can duck stuff too. Like I have,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm playing a strength faith build, whatever. I have this spell called like Beast Claw, right? Where you kind of get real low to the ground and like drag your hand, and then you send out these like the shockwave, like these beast claws or whatever, right? And I was totally doing this thing. I was fighting two knights, and I was just charging up beast claw, and their swords just went over my head, and I'm like, that's like awesome like hitbox porn, and I'm doing a lot of like
Hitbox porn.
jumping. Yeah, because a jumping attack is good, right? But it also gives you iframes, right? You don't just have to dodge all the time. So when you're jumping, I think they learned a little bit of that from Sekiro, right? Like you see that
for sure.
Sekiro in the combat system, and
Don't
it just
forget
feels
horse
good.
frames, too.
It looks good, and you got that fantasy, right? That fantasy game like dream, right? Like of these mounted combats, and you're jumping over big sword swipes, and you're you know doing all kinds of cool shield stuff. I'm a big shield guy, and
There's
oh man,
nothing like taking on one of those like giants wandering through a big open field and like
the ashes of
double
war.
jumping
Oh,
double
dude.
jumping over their sword swipes with the horse, with the steed.
Oh man,
It's
But
it's so good.
it is also, I mean, similar to any kind of Souls game, so satisfying when one of those giants, that was probably like the third enemy I encountered, because I
Mhm.
didn't like, here's the thing. You're in that first area and there's that old ghost dude in the chair and he's like, hey, go down this pit and there's some cool stuff down there, you knowledge. And then there's like a blood stain next to him of someone falling and dying. I'm like, well, I'm not going down there. It wasn't until later on that I learned that you can actually go down the side and there is shit. So I never went down there. I just started going out into the world.
Yeah, it's
So
just a little
like
tutorial.
literally the third enemy I ever encountered was one of those giants and just got my fucking ass handed to me. And then later on I encountered one again and fucking just destroy him.
It is I'm glad you bring that up because it is one of the it is one of the most interesting and at the same time kind of one of the funniest implementations of a tutorial I've ever seen, because the tutorial is actually quite effective, but like it literally, you start in a room and it's like you could roll down into this like pit and it looks dangerous. You know, a Dark Souls game, like what's down in the pit? Oh shit. And if you go down there, it's literally a tutorial. It teaches you all about the combat of the game. Or you can just say fuck it and be like, "Oh, I'm not going down there," and just go out into the world, but you're leaving behind something very very effective, very important, and that blows my mind. But Also, I just want to stress this too because I saw somebody in chat mention when we were talking about like the little smaller dungeons that populate the world. They were like, "Well, are there bigger, more elaborate dungeons too?" And like like Storm. We're talking about Stormvale Castle a lot. I have gone back to Stormvale Castle, even though I've technically gone through Stormvale Castle, beaten Godric, gone out, explored for like another 10 hours. I have doubled back. I got halfway across the world and found an item in a chest that was like, it's a key to something in Stormvale Castle. And I was like, what the shit? I went back to Stormvale Castle. I still don't know what it unlocks, but I'm exploring it. And I found a secret, like, underground thing with another boss that I never knew existed.
Oh, really?
And,
Yeah.
and I'm just like,
Oh,
I've been literally
the tree
exploring this
thing.
for hours.
There's one of those tree monsters under the castle, and if you
Cool.
kill
This
it,
isn't even a tree
get the
monster.
gold seed.
This is like a giant like worm thing almost.
Huh.
Like
That's the
Stormvale Castle
castle's
is
penis,
enormous.
Nick.
Stormvale Castle is
What's
enormous.
its name?
This is
I don't know.
this is
The
Breath of
one-eyed
the
monster.
Wild with the real dungeons that we wanted, right? You know,
Oh,
everyone
yes.
said when Breath of the Wild comes out, like, oh, this is good, but the big Guardian piece or whatever, they're not as cool as like a real Zelda dungeon. This
Just-
feels like the dream, right? You get the real good set PC Souls game dungeons, but they're just in the world, like looming on the horizon, like oh, the sight lines, especially when you get north of the castle. This is such a beautiful
And they're
game.
like so hidden too sometimes. Like those crypts. I found a couple of those crypts, which are the coolest dungeons. So
Yeah.
cool. And like they'll just be like hidden away somewhere, and you're like, it's so random that I even saw this door. But then I go inside, and there's a whole ass fucking dungeon in there with a boss room and everything, and puzzles and traps and skeletons, and it's just like.
What's the cool shit?
It's the good stuff. It's like it's the fucking hit I'm chasing when I'm playing D&D, you know? It's like, oh yeah, fucking dungeons and
Dude,
puzzles.
Speaking of D&D, which I think this is the best world in any video game I've played. This except like it's up there with like Morrowind in my opinion. Like this is so good. But like one of the things that I didn't expect going into this, I knew it was going to be an open world Souls game, but I didn't expect I'd be playing it different and thinking about it differently than a Souls game because everything is so open, because there's like varying levels of difficulty all over the place. And because like there's like consistent rewards from like dungeons, right? Like every time you beat a boss, you get like something, right? Anyways, when I play a game like this, I'm looking stuff up occasionally, right? Because I'm playing a faith character and I want to know. You still have to like invest a lot in stats for certain things. Like I want to know, well, like what's a good spell? When am I going to get a good spell? Where is that good spell, right? Like the Beast Claws was a skill that was in the beta, but it wasn't when you pick Prophet in this. He didn't have it, so I'm like, okay, well, that spell was really cool. I want that spell. So I looked that shit up, right? In any other Souls game, it's like, well, you know, you'll get to it eventually, right? But here the world is open, so like I know exactly where that is. This is in a dungeon up on the Great Plateau, so I'm like creating quests for myself, right? Of like I'm not
Those
just
are the
like
notes. Those are the journals.
Yes. I'm like, I'm gonna find this place. I don't know how I'm gonna get there, but I'm gonna figure it out. And like I did. I'm like, I'm gonna get to that plateau. And I went all the way up north, and I'm like, how do I get up there? And there's this lift, and I didn't know how to activate the lift. And I'm like, there's gotta be a way up there. And I went on this whole long quest through the like mines of fucking Moria, dude. And like and I eventually ran into a fucking dragon, and the only way through was for me to beat this goddamn dragon. But goddamn it was my fucking quest because I knew there was something up there that I wanted, and I've never had that experience in a Souls game before. And it's like a fucking adventure. Like it's brilliant. I love it so much, and I
that
got
thing
it,
that
and
you're
it felt
talking
so good.
That thing you're talking about, that like self motivation, that like I'm not handing you a quest and telling you to go do something, but like I'm just giving you information about the world and you're deciding what to do with it. Like that is the magic sauce that like no video game has except for games that are so open that it usually doesn't even matter if you accomplish what you want to accomplish. And like even just like playing tabletop RPGs where like that was kind of like the mode for a long time, that's still like a really difficult thing to accurately capture and like get people excited because they're doing something that they want to do and they're taking the initiative. And like I absolutely agree with you on that stance that like that's kind of the cool part about like the journaling thing is just like collecting information and remembering, like running into people out in the world and they tell you something or they give you something and you're just like, oh yeah, I saw this over here, I remember that over there, and like there is not a fucking waypoint or a mission objective or a fucking map marker or blinky or shiny or anything anywhere that is just like do this like.
And I'm thinking right now
Wait.
that like all that this is going to inspire
So cool.
in like open world game
So
design
cool.
for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Ed,
The only
what's up,
like
man?
the only like criticism or critique I'd lob at that is like Brad did that or has this quest in his mind because he like looked up where to find it.
Yeah.
It seems like, right?
Sure.
But I mean,
Like-
that's
not-
But,
not
like,
always the
yeah,
case.
Look, I'm gonna argue that is even kind of like part of the meta experience of Souls. Like, think about like we don't really talk about the cooperative stuff as much, but like that is such a huge part of this. Like, there
Yeah.
is this idea in the game of like you are doing this with other people, or you're all exploring the same thing, and like I almost feel like the when you're designing the experience of a game like this, you're considering things like I want, like playing Morrowind back in the day. I want people talking to each other and being like, "Oh, I went over here and saw this. Oh, I went over here and did that.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got that. Where'd you get that? Where did you get that fucking mace? That's really cool. Where did you get that helmet? Like, you know what I mean? Like that communication. That is
Yeah,
so that's
fucking
where I'm struggling
powerful.
right now.
Like,
right?
it's powerful.
That's where I'm struggling is that I feel like I don't want to go to the wiki to like look things up because I want to like kind of figure it out on my own.
I think
I
if
don't
you
go
were
to
an
the wiki.
adventurer,
I
like
talk to
hanging out at
people.
a fucking adventurer bar,
I don't
or
talk to
something,
people. I don't have friends.
like,
No.
We have a
I
Discord,
don't mean
Ed.
literally. Well, yeah, I talk to
Yeah.
people in Discord, but I'm saying I would rather like read a Reddit thread on like what people think about various like spells or weapons or whatever as kind of like the communication, the people talking, right? I'm not always looking up on the wiki of where stuff is. I'm just
I see. Yeah.
but I mean, it's part of these games, and maybe you can't credit the game to it, but I can credit my experience of playing these games to
I also think
playing
have you
it
guys,
that way.
dude, like the natural interaction too of like misinformation is
Yeah.
so cool. It is so cool. Have you guys found a real illusory wall in this game yet?
Yes, I
yeah.
did find one.
I have, and it blew my fucking mind because there was a note on the ground. I looked at it, and it's like illusory wall ahead or whatever, like attack the wall, and I'm like, yeah, fucking right. And I hit the wall, and it disappeared, and I was like, what? One of these is fucking true. Like after,
All the
A
troll
bit
messages.
much now. I think this game sold like way better than any other Souls game, and you can tell because there's so many messages. You get an illusory wall message on every fucking wall. It seems like there's so many people playing.
I
anytime
think I
there's an
went into a
archway
du-
and a wall.
I wish I
went
could
into a
downvote
dungeon
and
that I'm
poison a
pretty
player.
I'm pretty sure I went to a
Yes.
dungeon that has an illusionary wall, and I just couldn't find it.
Dude, there was one where like
I
half the
just left.
dungeon was hidden. Like,
Right? Yeah.
Real quick, couple points. First, I just want to stress that the experience that Brad described with the Mines of Moria experience, whatever, that experience is also could easily happen without having to go anywhere and talk to anybody about it.
Yeah,
Even
for sure.
You know, it may not happen chronologically. It may just be like, I'm going to store this piece of information, and then when I see something that triggers for me to remember it, then like boom, I'm off to the races.
I guess my question is like how much information does the game and world give you to guide you in that direction? Like, are you feeling that right now, or is it just like I discovered something naturally and it's like, oh, I'm not quite ready for this. Let me come back.
I feel
So
like
I
it
think
does it in
that
like
key
kind
that
of
I
a
mentioned,
terms.
Yeah.
key that I mentioned that I found like way north of Stormvale Castle,
Mhm.
it kind of alluded to a chamber or a door that is unlocked in Stormvale Castle. So the item description
Oh,
told me
okay.
I need to go to Stormvale
see.
Castle for it. And I was like, that was the only piece of information I had. And then the next 2.5 hours was me going back and exploring Stormvale Castle and finding all kinds of shit that I didn't know was there. I still haven't found the door I need to use it on, but like that was like an entire chunk of time, and I'm still going to go back and look for it later. I
There
also
are
want to
still
stress
like
too.
NPC quests and stuff too, right?
Yeah,
That you
yeah,
need,
yeah.
which I think is a bit of a problem because you know they're still as obtuse as ever, right? It's really
Right.
easy
Oh,
to
yeah,
fuck
for sure.
something
I
up.
think I
And
do
I
need to
fuck
start
some
journaling
stuff
for
up.
that. For sure.
I
think they're
stumbled
more-
across a dude that was turned into a bush, and he didn't realize he had been transformed into a bush. He
Yeah.
was talking to me, and I was like, "Where are you?" And I was like looking around, and he's like, and then I started like swinging my sword, and when I hit him, he turned back into like a creature, and he was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
was I a bush?" And then he started talking to me, and he was like, "Yeah, my the people I live with, sent me out, and like they shunned me, and they turned me into a bush."
excommunicated me. He
Yeah,
got
they
like kicked
excommunicated
out.
me.
Yeah.
And that led to like a little thing, and like there was no quest marker.
Wait,
He
have
just
you
told me
encountered
there's a
him
cave
again?
north of here. No, I did the thing where I went to his little village and I killed all the people in his village or whatever, and I never found him again. I went back for him, but like that's the kind of shit that's crazy. But Crispy had talked briefly about the co-op experience, and I had quite an experience on Tuesday night trying to kind of figure all that shit out. But quick public service announcement, because right around launch I saw like 5 articles saying, this is how co-op works, and they all said the same thing: cross-gen co-op is not possible. Crispy proved that wrong. I co-opted with Crispy on
Yeah, I
Tuesday
know.
night,
They
and we
must
took
have been
down a
talking about
dragon
the,
together.
they must have been talking about the network test or something.
Yeah,
I
like
don't know.
every
Yeah,
beta,
maybe.
right?
Maybe.
Because yeah,
So you can't play like PS5, Xbox, PS5, and PC or whatever. But like if you have a friend playing on PS4 and you're on PS5 or whatever, you can totally do that. So that was
Oh,
super
okay.
cool. And we ran around, and like the co-op experience too, like shout out to the drunken merchant. He popped like he's like, "Hey dude, invite me to your game for a second." And we coordinated. I told him I'm gonna put down the sign here, and he popped into my game and just gave me this dope ass helmet and left.
I saw that helmet. Fuck you.
And I was like, this is the social, like this is the first
Must be
time.
nice.
This is the
That's
first
not
time.
social. He gave you.
No. I mean, but like the point is like that's not an experience I've had before playing a Souls game. Like I didn't really get into playing Souls games, I think, until Dark Souls, right before Dark Souls 3 came out, maybe, and maybe even after Dark Souls. I don't fucking remember. But like I've never felt this sense of like community playing a Souls game like I have right now.
Yeah.
Like our Discord channel is just constant and just cool shit everywhere, and people talking and communicate. It's like the best water cooler I've ever seen.
I do
And
think the world design definitely lends itself to that, right? Is that
Yes.
like because it's so open and vast and stuff like that, like it's like I felt like when I played like maybe Demon Souls to a lesser extent, but like Bloodborne and Sekiro, I was definitely being guided. I could basically explore the whole thing and never miss anything. But I
Yeah.
feel like I can miss things in this game, which
Dude.
goes to what you're talking about, Brad and Chris and Nick. It's like you're definitely brought into like the desire to reach out to other players to kind of like learn things more so than any other Souls game before.
I could be speaking at my ass here, but I still have this feeling that like I could play this game for 100 hours and still have
Yeah.
tons
sure.
of shit that I haven't found.
Can
And
I-
like
can
that
I-
is, and I intend
Can I
to.
say? Can I say one thing that still bums me out though? Is that,
Yes.
and more than ever, there's so many cool weapons and spells, and you often get them. Like you kind of know where you get that stuff from, like the Ashes of War, right? Like you're either gonna get them from dungeons, you're gonna get them from those dung beetles or whatever. But like the thing is, you get so much shit, but they still make it so hard to use so much of that. I hate the
Oh,
way
yeah.
they handle stats in this game because I spec myself out a certain way, and there's so much shit that I can't even like play with really.
Yeah, try
and,
out.
and like you can eventually respec it, but that's so much later, and that doesn't. The other problem with that is like upgrading weapons is like harder than it's ever been. Like they separated all the smithing stones out into like separate numbers, so you can have like enough smith stones to get from a weapon rank 11 to like 16, but you might not have the smithing stones you need to get from rank 5 to rank 10 or whatever, right? Because they broke them all up. Before it was like titanite shards and titanite chunks, and that's it. Now it's smithstone 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9
Also,
10.
the worst
And
part
I
is that like
don't.
half the time I think the number associated with the Smithstone is like the
How many
number
you
of
have.
Smithstones that I have.
Yeah.
But what happens is it means like I'm so afraid to commit to an item, a weapon, and so I even the ones I do have the stats for, I'm scared to even use because I'm worried I'm gonna have a hard time like getting these smith stones. And you eventually get miner bells and you can buy some of them, but they're very fucking expensive. I just wish that this game made it a little easier to play with some of those elements because some of that shit seems so fucking cool.
Yeah,
I do
I
applaud them
just
though for making the Ashes of War very easy to kind of like swap in and out and fuck around with.
Yeah.
That stuff's pretty cool.
what's up, Chris Davis?
I have a basic question since I am the only one who has not played this yet. The
Basic.
the core Souls games all had, and don't take this as detrimental, but they all have the hollow or ashen gimmick to them, to where when you die, you go into a less powerful state, and you got your humanity restored when you defeat a boss, right? So, is there such a similar feature
don't all
in this
have
game?
that.
They don't all have that, and this one doesn't either.
Yeah, this one
Right.
doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is
What?
probably like the easiest one to like get into because
There's
it's
still
so
some
open,
like there's still
and they don't
some
have stuff like that.
economy. There's still some economy to like the abilities that were originally associated with being, you know, human or hollow or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you had to use an item to become human to like do things like multiplayer.
Yeah.
And now you have to just buy a specific item, like a consumable item to do
Or
that.
craft it. Like
But-
crafting's
yeah, or
in the
craft
game,
it.
and that's cool.
But it's a lot cheaper and a lot easier to get your hands on those than humanity ever was.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I think Sekiro and Bloodborne, neither of those games had that mechanic.
Yeah, that seems. I
yeah,
think
right.
that's strictly a Dark Souls.
Yeah, just
Yeah, that's
Dark
why I
Souls
said
and
Souls
Demon's Souls.
games, not necessarily
Yeah, and-
Bloodborne or Sekiro or stuff.
And,
Yeah,
and I
Bloodborne
do
didn't have
think
that at all.
those are the things, those are the systems that I think if you want to get down to the nitty gritty and say like, why is this not Dark Souls 4? Why is this something else? It's going to be things like that are missing because
Yeah,
those things are unique to Dark Souls. The broader things like the dying and having to go back and get your souls or runes or whatever, that is what makes this a FromSoft game, obviously. But it's those are the common threads that run
Yeah,
through all of these
I think
games.
you can say that the thematic like look of the game is very Dark Souls and Demon Souls
Yeah.
versus like
Yeah.
Bloodborne and Sekiro, right? I think that's definitely true.
Yeah, it's
No one's like a freaking knight in this footage, versus like a ninja or a gothic doctor
But
or
I'm
whatever.
seeing people rolling with like, I'm pretty sure Drunken Merchant was rolling with like double katanas and shit. So like,
Yeah,
There's a samurai, I know that.
I
yeah.
just started carrying an axe and I'm loving it. So
Man.
I've been doing double swords, and it's been a lot of fun to like kind of do a right swing, left swing, and stuff like that.
It would be cool
Yeah.
if some of the Bloodborne weapons showed up. That would be cool.
Just switch weapons. Yeah.
There's an
it's
area
just-
in the game that very much has Bloodborne vibes.
Yeah. Is it the capital city?
No,
Right.
it's a very
Nice.
scary area that I got
It's very-
teleported to very early on in the game.
Any Sekiro
Y'all
stuff in
keep
there?
talking about teleporting. I've yet to be
Oh,
teleported by anything.
Oh,
so that's
there's-
a new concept to me.
I found like voluntary teleports. I haven't found.
I found a portal that I was able to go through,
Yeah,
and it
okay.
took me to a new
I think that's
area.
what I'm referring to. But they're also like trap
There's
chests
trap chests. Yeah.
that will send you to other parts of the world.
Are you
which is great.
serious?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
That's,
So
that's
if you open a chest and a bunch of smoke starts coming out,
Get the fuck
You're
out of
fucked.
here.
Oh, that's what
Dodge.
I thought I was gonna be poisoned, so I ran away from it.
no, it's a teleport.
Fuck! I need to go find that dungeon again.
But
I
yeah,
don't know where it
if you like dodge the teleport, you can go back later and open it and it'll still do it.
Yeah. There's one in that first area, right
Mhm.
by the lake, Nolan.
Mhm.
That's
Is
where.
that the
that's
one?
where
There's a
that
bunch of rats in there.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I think I know where it's like in not a swamp, but it's like
Yeah,
a very kind of
swamp.
flooded.
Swamp,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah, I know where that is. Oh, shit, I'm going back.
It's like
there then.
dragon. It's called
Fuck.
dragon
Dragon
something. Or something
Birch
like that.
ruins or something.
Yeah,
you know what's funny? When we were
Dragon's Fruit.
watching like the early footage of this game and they were showing it for the first time or whatever, and they show you that like epic moment where guys just running through a field and all of a sudden a dragon comes swooping out of the sky and like blows a bunch of shit away, and then it's just like epic boss fight starts, whatever. In my brain, I was like, oh man, late game Elden Ring looks crazy. That shit's like the first fucking like within 5 minutes of leaving like the first little cave area and you're out in the world for the first time. That's
Yeah.
the dragon. That's the
That-
dragon Crispy helped me beat the other night, and
That-
that,
that
blows
was-
my
but-
mind.
That is super cool. Like I talked to a guy and they're like, don't hang out by the lake that much because there's a dragon. And I was like, well, I'm gonna go hang out by the lake a little bit. And
Whatever.
I'm like dancing around, like I keep like I'm walking around killing enemies, and every time I kill an enemy, I like look up and like
Yeah.
look around to
Look
see
up.
if the dragon's coming.
I found another dragon out in the world, but there was like an item that was like, it was sleeping, and there was an item clearly hidden behind it, and I was just like, you know what? Fuck this! I just ran behind him as he sort of like kind of wake up, and I was like, I just snatched the item and fucking booked it.
I did that too
Uh,
with like a
by
sleeping
the way,
bear. Yeah.
that was the key. The key to Stormvale Castle, I stole from a
Oh.
dragon and just ran like a little bitch.
I
And
saw
like
that.
the fact that you can do that makes this it's so good. It's just so good. I will go back for that dragon, but I stole that bitch's treasure, and that's what makes this game magical.
So,
It's like-
so I wanted to ask. So this game has Sekiro style stealth to it.
It does have some, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this game is wholly open world, and boss fights are open engagement, so you can actually escape them.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Like
It
there'll
depends,
be
yeah.
those scripted areas, yeah. But like a dragon
I've
coming out of
run
nowhere,
from
yeah, you
several
can
boss
escape.
fights, yeah.
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 Like if you trigger that boss fight with the dragon in the lake, and you're taking too much damage, or whatever, you can totally jump on your steed and just book it.
Yeah,
He'll
and
follow
the
you
one-
for a little while.
The one in
but,
the
like,
southern
you can get away
area
from him.
down where I am is another one that's just like you engage and leave. But like Margit and like the boss, the wolf boss that we mentioned earlier, those have fog walls that you can't get past once you walk in the
Okay.
room.
So is there like, and this is going to be obtuse to the entire From Software formula, but is there an incentive or gameplay aspect to actually encouraging not attacking optional bosses?
Well, yeah, you can die.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but I'm talking about like
are you
if
are
I
you
choose
subtly
to
trying
be like,
ask if you-
I'm kind of
Yeah,
asking the pacifist question.
this
I
is
know
not that
that's-
quest. This is not that game.
There is no
Oh,
pass.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
You're-
is not that game. You'll
You know,
never like.
You're a
I have-
warlord.
I have been wondering about like certain things. I don't think it's in this game, but like in terms of like alignment, like should I be doing this? Like for example, there are like packs of enemies where there's like a like an alpha wolf or whatever, right? Or
Right.
like an alpha enemy, and if you take them out, all the other ones will just sort of like cower and not fight you. They'll just stop, and you
The
can go up there
demi-humans
and you
do
can
that.
fucking kill all of them, and they won't do anything to you. And I was doing that today, and I was like, I wonder if I could be punished for like doing this, because this seems really
I don't know.
like
I
ruthless.
mean, that's what I'm asking.
I
Here. I mean,
don't
like,
I don't think this world. I don't think this world would operate under the same moral framework of our world. I think you are like a divinely chosen champion. Like if you're gonna become Elden Lord, whatever, you know. Like it is your moral prerogative to wipe these filthy demi-humans off out
Okay.
of the
Well,
world.
So
I-
a game Ogre
damn.
Battle, like back in the day, was a game where like if you picked fights with only like weaker enemies weaker than you, your alignment would actually go down, or your reputation would go down. So you were encouraged not to do like
Yeah.
finishing blows and stuff like
I
that.
don't think that's happening here. I think it's mostly just like, I mean, there might be some quests where there's something kind of like that, but I think that's more of just like if you can manage to take out the
Yeah.
alpha, it just gives you another. It's a combat incentive to like disarm the other enemies around you.
it would be
well-
kind of cool if that was kind of like tied into like the multiplayer aspect. You know how I believe in Dark Souls 2 and 3 had covenants, right? And you had to have certain alignments and have done certain things to get into a covenant. Like if you could alter your like
Your alignment.
alignment with other players based on killing bosses or not killing bosses, I think that'd be pretty cool.
So I wouldn't be surprised if something like that in this game exists. I think a lot of us are too early to kind of know the
There's-
answer to that.
There's something like they had in the first Dark Souls where you can accumulate sin or something like that, and then you have to go to one of the churches to cleanse it. But I think that's PvP related.
I think so.
Uh,
I think it might be if you invade and murder people, then you accumulate.
Yeah, Fairkid's kind of right. I'm kind of describing world tendency from Demon Souls. So
Yeah.
Right.
Real quick, we probably need to move on here pretty soon. But I forgot who mentioned this a second ago, but it reminded me of like maybe one of my favorite design touches, flourishes in this game, because you can like just taking the Dark Souls formula and expanding it into an open world is not a simple task, right? You have to like figure out how things scale with it, and they found so many really creative ways to make their formula scale. And one of them is like, in a Dark Souls game, you run around, you have a certain number of Estus flasks, and if you can get to the next bonfire, you refill them, right? There's also the occasional instance where you can do something else to unlock one to refill it. So you're running from bonfire to bonfire in Dark Souls, right? In this game, it's entirely open. So you have a flask that you can upgrade throughout the game. That flask can be split into health and mana, right? So if you have three uses, you can allocate them. So I can do 1 health, 2 magic, right? Or you can rebalance
Salt and Sanctuary, actually.
Yeah, so you can true. You can rebalance it, but my favorite little touch is because like you're in an open world game, you never know how far in between the next site of grace or quote unquote bonfire or whatever, or what you're going to be doing at any given time. So there's got to be some kind of way for you to like you could go theoretically, you could spend like an hour exploring something and not run across a site of grace, and they have no way of really accounting for that. But like what they've done is they put groups of enemies throughout the world, and if you take out a group, like if there's like 4 enemies grouped together, if you kill them all, there's a certain percentage chance they're going to refill your Estus flask. So it's like it gives you incentive.
They will. They will. It just depends on how much it is, right? Like whether they completely refill it or not. The on the other side of that, the little like buff flasks that you get that you can like mix different reagents in and it gives you like certain buffs is pretty cool too.
Or physics.
Also, that bitch in the round table hold who hugs you, don't do it, guys. Don't do it.
Don't do it unless you have a reason to.
She gives you a debuff. She doesn't.
She hugged me.
No. She gives you an item that if you use it, it buffs your poise a whole lot. But as long as you're holding that item, you have negative 5% HP or something like that.
That's
So
true.
don't do it. Yeah. So don't do it unless
probably.
you have a reason.
As someone who doesn't fully understand how poise even works yet,
poise is how much you can take before you
before you get staggered.
Or you're staggered, right?
Yeah.
So I'm doing so much range stuff because I'm playing magic. I've never really done a magic build in one of these games, so I intentionally was like, I'm gonna try and go more magic focused this time. So I'm doing a lot of magic stuff. I'm doing a lot of ranged attacks with magic. So my poise very rare. Like I rarely get staggered because I'm very rarely in like face to face combat. So like I've just been carrying around this damn item for like 6 hours. So I've been taking a 5% health debuff for no reason. I didn't realize that until somebody told me. So there's that. So. All right, we need to move on. So, like, any final thoughts from you guys? I know we've talked about this for a long time.
I got a final thought. How exciting is it that they're working on a new Armored Core game, and like the people with like the really observant eyes have determined that it's going to be a little Souls-likey.
Are they officially working on an Armored Core game?
Yes, it's official. There's leaked screenshots and everything.
So it's like an open world game where instead of like being a knight, you're like in a giant mech.
I don't know if it's an open world game, but there's talk.
What if what if you just like find a mech in Elden Ring, like deep underground?
Okay, nerd.
Fuck yeah.
That'd be so cool.
Mechs make
Can I
everything better.
It has like a 100 strength, 100 ins, 100 faith requirement.
You know what I will say as like a final thought, maybe, and this is probably totally illogical, and I shouldn't be thinking of it this way or whatever, but I'm playing this game, and it's kind of the same feeling I had playing Breath of the Wild, where it's like, what have they done? They've done this. If any game they make in the future is not on this scale,
you're having that Joker conversation from The Dark Knight where he's like, "You've changed everything."
It just made Dark Souls 4 and it was more like Dark Souls 3, I'd be bummed. You know what I mean? Like they have forced themselves into a corner where this is how hard they have to go, or it's going to be a disappointment. And I feel the same way about
after
Zelda.
Breath of the Wild,
Anything else y'all want to close with on this conversation?
Is there a grappling
like
hook?
You're good.
Pretty cool.
No. But did we mention there's a
2
double
out of
jumping
10.
horse? It's a double jumping horse. I think that's all you need to know.
Can I say I wish that horse looked a little cooler, or I'd get some armor for that
All
horse?
right, nerd.
Shut
All
up!
right, nerd.
Hey, you leave him alone. He's a sweet
like a
boy.
Mule.
He's a sweet boy.
You want some gold horse
I
armor?
look so sick.
Why you talk about Torrent like that?
I look so sick, and he looks like a mule.
All right, guys, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Horizon Forbidden West. We'll answer some questions, and we will wrap up with the 4-player minute. So if you're watching us live, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show, everybody. We're done talking about Elden Ring for now, I guess. Although I do assume it's going to come up again on future shows. For now, though, I want to talk a little bit about another game that came out just a week before Elden Ring.
Yeah.
How unfortunate.
Yeah.
How unfortunate. The timing is so... Horizon
5 years
cannot
ago.
catch a break. Yeah,
5 years ago, they came out a week before Breath of the Wild, and now this.
Yeah, it's crazy to think. But Horizon Forbidden West is out. Ed and myself have played it. I don't know how much you've played, Ed. I'm still fairly early.
I don't remember what it's called, but like I got out of Zion Canyon. If you want the like real world analog of it. So I'm in the Cinnabar Sand, I think is what they call it. Like basically the desert of Nevada.
Right. Nevada. So where it kind of, that's exactly where I am. That's pretty much where it kind of just lets you out into the open world for the first time, because you spend a lot of time, like 5 or 6 hours probably.
You spend a lot of time in that tutorial. They take a lot of time there. I mean, it's cool.
This will come up in one of the questions we have from the community, from the listeners tonight. But
True.
Yeah. So I tried to play as much as I could before. Yeah, why not? Why not? Why don't I do that? This is probably the best place to put it. And this is actually a question from the Drunken Merchant. He says, how soon should an open world game give you access to the full map and throw you into the game loop? Halo Infinite, Dying Light 2, and Pokemon Legends are all recent examples of games that take kind of a different approach. And then you can think about other games like Fallout 3, Far Cry 3, and plenty of other examples of games that take a different approach. Elden Ring and Horizon take pretty dramatic, very different approaches to this question. One, Elden Ring opting to pretty much drop you into the thick of it very quickly.
I think the biggest problem with Horizon is that they do the like couple hour tutorial section, and then they put you in the it's Zion Canyon, but like the Daunt, yeah, they put you in the Daunt, and they don't let you get out of the Daunt either for another couple extra hours. So you're like have the tutorial, and then you have the post tutorial, and then you're finally out of the open world. And that was kind of annoying.
Yeah, I've only played this game for probably a total of 10 hours, which is why I don't want to talk about it too much. I just want to kind of give first impressions, because I've only probably spent an hour or two exploring what is now the open world of the game. Although, to be fair, the Daunt is a big open space, but it is just kind of a tiny sliver of the giant open map that you're going to spend most of the game in. So a lot of this footage is me just kind of wildly running around the bigger world and trying to kind of get a grip for like, how are enemies placed? How do I where do I fall on the hierarchy right now? Like, am I strong enough to take on some of these machines and that kind of thing?
Right.
And I've only just now unlocked like kind of one of the major new features of the game, which is the glider or the whatever. Like you can jump off the cliffs and parachute, kind of like
it's super cool.
Yourself. It is super cool.
It's like Breath of the Wild, but like it is when I first saw it, like because you get it by killing an enemy in like a story mission, and like when you see him do it, you're like, what? And then you get it, and you're like, oh shit, this is super cool. It's like
that is the glider that I wanted in Ghosts of Tsushima.
Yeah,
where you did so much climbing, and then you had to climb down.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. And one thing I do want to say, especially after having just spent an hour talking about Elden Ring and how dramatically different that is, how refreshing it is, especially from an open world design standpoint, I think it's it's kind of hard to avoid having the kind of opposite conversation about Horizon, which is this is very much in line with
traditional
what
open world.
what we expect from a typical open world
Yeah,
game.
for sure.
That's not for me. That's not necessarily trying to imply that it's a bad thing. But of the 3 big open world games that have come out in the last month, Dying Light 2 being the third one, this is probably the safest in terms of
Yeah,
design
it's very
and
comfortable.
traversal.
For sure.
It's very comfortable. Yeah, I will say that the glider definitely changes the puzzling
Yeah.
sections of the game a lot. Like you before, I mean, it's your basic like climb, traverse, and like jump maybe from one grappling like holding point to another or whatever. But once
Right,
you get
right.
the glider, it like you may not, it doesn't click in your head right away, but then you like jump towards an area and then you turn on the glide and you're like, oh shit, I can like get
Move
farther.
between-
I can
yeah.
move between different platforms a little bit differently than I could before, and that was pretty cool. And I also think that the combat is like tighter in a sense in this game. I mean, it was already pretty tight before, but I feel like I'm maybe better at it than I was in the first game. I feel like I can take down the robots a lot more, like I don't want to say
Efficiently?
easily. Yeah, efficiently is probably a good word for it. So like all this to be said, they're these 2 games, Elden Ring and because I'm not playing Dying Light, but these 2 games are like very different types of open world approaches, but they both have their like real strong, their real pros to it.
Yeah.
So I think there's something to be said about like there's a place in the conversation, I guess, if you want to say that about video games today, that there's a place for both of these kinds of games there.
Absolutely. And to be honest, I think a lot of people I'm honestly kind of surprised. I mean, I know Horizon has been incredibly successful, and I know a lot of people really love Horizon. Maybe it's more of just the circles that I travel in and the community that we have. We talk about it, and I feel like kind of the reaction to it is, even after the first one, the reaction to it is kind of, to me, kind of surprisingly timid, because the combat in this game, I think, is so frenetic and action packed and like crazy, and like enemy types are crazy, and like I've always been like, how are people not like way more excited about this than they are? Because the shit going on in this game is bananas, and like even in this game, I think there's even very very early on, there's a lot more interesting types of machines right up front. Like I found a fucking kangaroo today that fucking bounces around and then swings his tail around and like
Wait, does
creates
he have a
shockwaves.
smaller kangaroo robot inside him?
No, not
Like
yet.
Soundwave.
What is the point? Exactly.
Yeah, what
like
is the point
Soundwave.
then?
He's designed more around the hopping than the pouch, but I see where you're going with that.
Are there more robot dinosaurs?
Yes, there are.
Good.
There's
There
there's
are. There
actually
actually are.
like way more than the first game. Like the first game, I feel like they were kind of like more animalistic than or like mammalistic and
For sure.
than dinosaurs or whatever. But like this game has like literal dinosaur looking.
There's a triceratops that they use. There's a friendly triceratops that they actually use to farm these fields around Planescape, which is this place that I'm in right now.
It's super cool that like I mean like this is just going to like the story of this world or whatever. But like you have the Utaru is the clan that they have like gods that they worship, and their gods are these massive machines, and they're like and they have their own like cycle and like religion around it, and like story of the first game and the world and lore of the first game was so good and so surprising. I was really worried that I wasn't gonna get like the same kind of feeling with it. But I definitely do. Like I'm getting the same kind of like, oh, this is super neat how they did this, and like so there's a part in the little bit in the story that a thing happens, and I'm like, okay, I may have kind of thought that was what was going to happen, but it still like kind of surprised me when it happened, I guess, in its own way.
And honestly, as someone who hasn't played a ton of it, I've heard there are some big surprises story-wise.
Oh, I heard the spoilers. I never even played the first game, but that shit was funny.
I don't know what it is. I'm really excited to find out. It's such a bummer too, because like I'm stuck right now. Like I'm thinking about Elden Ring when I'm at work, and I'm also really enjoying this game. And I know if Elden Ring didn't exist, I would be playing the shit out of this.
So what happened to me was I played Elden Ring on well, so when Horizon came out, the weekend Horizon came out, I was still playing Returnal, and I was trying to get to like the platinum of that, and
Yeah.
we can talk about that at a
You
different time. But
crazy person.
yeah, it was insane. I don't know what I'm doing with myself, but so I started playing Horizon all last week before Elden Ring came out. I played a little bit of Elden Ring on Friday, Saturday, and then Katie wanted me to like hang out with her for a little bit, so we hung out together. And when we were done with that, I played Horizon. And like even after she fell asleep, I was still sitting there playing Horizon just because it is that comfort kind of food, kind of open world game, and
It's
and
familiar.
it's so tight, and it is there's something to it, and it didn't make me want to get off the couch and come back over to my PC and play Elden Ring, you know?
That's praise right there in and of itself.
Yeah, yeah.
sure.
I mean, I'm
There's a couple
getting stuff
things-
out of both of these games. I'm getting a lot out
I
of
feel
both
like
of these games.
if
They're just-
story is something that you value a lot in a game, and
Yes.
I mean, this is a very different kind of game
Yes.
than Elden Ring. Elden Ring is like 100% gameplay first, and this seems very story, dialogue, character driven, that sort of thing.
And let me
Sure.
jump on that aspect right there, because one thing that I've noticed almost immediately, and there's a lot of people that if you're going to harp on things from the original, it was that a lot of the animation, especially in like dialogue sequences, was very stiff, or
It
you
looks
know,
a lot better here for sure.
It
Mhm.
is like I'm really constantly kind of amazed at how emotive people are and
Yeah.
how
Mm.
real
The-
they look and behave. Like
Yeah,
when people are talking, they're like turning around, like pointing off in the distance and like emoting and
the
reacting
motion
to each other.
capture the motion capture is really good, except for when you get to the point where you have to like select your next thing you're gonna say, and they're just kind of like standing around, kind of like
Awkwardly, yeah.
are you
yeah,
gonna
you know,
say
initial
something?
animation's not the
Whatever.
best.
A little bit. It's more that like you're like expected to kind of pick the next thing like fairly quickly, and so if you don't pick something very quickly, they're just kind of like
Staring at each other.
staring
Yeah,
at each
Which
other.
and like right before those moments, they're like having the most emotive
Yeah, like
conversation
like,
ever, and then
we're
they just
talking
like
about
stop.
how the world is dying, and then they're like,
And then it's like somebody just flicked off a switch. But you know, you're
Mm.
really just that when those things happen, you're like looking at the dialogue choices and you're kind of focused on that. So
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
really tend to notice them standing there, whatever. So it's not a huge deal.
Yeah.
All in
the,
You
all,
wanna
I
get
think
the
the-
presentation-
Frozen Wilds, I think, was their experimental ground for really improving
Yeah.
that. Because I think I still say the Frozen Wilds' conversations and acting was like 10 times better than the base game.
Yeah, it probably
Yeah.
was, and I
Um,
think this is an even bigger step forward than
Yeah,
that for
so-
sure.
One of the questions that we got was about this. Illumination says, like, what are your thoughts on voiceovers in Horizon? I've heard that the characters came across as mundane or lack of enthusiasm.
I don't know where she would have gotten because I found all the characters that I've spoken to, like especially in quests, like even side quests, like main quest, side quest doesn't matter. Like everyone that I've talked to has been. I'm just constantly kind of blown away. I'm like, how the fuck did they have much time and money to make this look as good as it does from like an acting and emoting
Yeah.
standpoint?
And
They had
Like,
5
it's
years.
insane.
So.
It's really it really is like cool. Like there's a after you finish like one of the main quests, you kind of get like messed up, and you have to like recover in this little village. And the like intro cinematic, it's where you meet the Triceratops that Nick was talking about. And you like are introduced to this character who's like a grave singer. She's like sings people to.
I haven't gotten this far yet.
Okay, so there's a moment between that character and another character that Aloy is like partnered with, and
Mhm.
Aloy is like very obviously jealous of that they're having a moment together, and you see it on her face and her body language, and like that's really cool. It's really cool that we can communicate that kind of stuff in a video game nowadays.
Yeah,
It's just not a thing that was even close to any kind of reality. Like the closest thing I guess is like LA Noire kind of like, and even that was kind of rough feeling or whatever. This
That
feels
was
very
yeah.
much more natural, right?
absolutely.
So I hear
heard-
that there's a bunch of new like companion characters in this.
There
Is there
are,
any?
but I'm still pretty early, so I'm not entirely sure how much detail I can go to.
Yeah,
on that,
I'm not.
but-
Okay.
I'm not sure about like. like there's a character that kind of follows you along through your quest, and there's like other, like you had then in the first game too. You had like characters that you met, and like at the end, you all kind of got together and worked together to kill the big bad or whatever. So I feel like it's kind of more like that. I don't know if there's like a companion system kind of thing or anything like that.
I think there's probably moments in the game where you're going to spend time, like, 'cause you spend like a lot of time in the main tutorial with another character, and I would
With
imagine
Carl,
that's
yeah.
not going to be the only time that happens.
Right.
Because
couple of
in
things I do
hearing
wanna-
in hearing about how this game was developed and some of the ways they were pitching those companion characters, it almost sounded like a certain iteration in this game's development that maybe co-op was a thing.
I mean, maybe. I mean, it certainly could have been part of it.
I could maybe see that for sure, especially those missions that you're so actively like working with an NPC. I could see it.
Also, I can just imagine running around this world with a partner and just having a blast, because just running around fighting machines in this game is insanely fun.
It is pretty cool, like the idea that when you do have a partner, he can like distract the machine while you like set down traps, and then you get the attention of the machine and lure it in the trap. Like that kind of loop is pretty cool too. So it would be neat if like Horizon 3 or whatever has some kind of more co-op stuff, to kind of get those emergent gameplay moments there.
Absolutely. A couple things I want to point out that I think are worth mentioning, improvement-wise, because a lot of open world games today, Horizon was definitely guilty of this. A lot of games, especially games where you can climb, Tomb Raider, Uncharted, they like to use like color things to like highlight where you can jump on. And there are some cases of that in this game where you can see like yellow handholds and whatever, but like this is also a lot more open in terms of what you can climb. It's almost like Breath of the Wild, where you can climb like a lot.
So the
no,
he's right. The handholds, the yellow handholds that you see are only when you scan, and they show
so
like the little lines. If you don't scan, then you can just kind of climb in things. And there's definitely things that I didn't think I was supposed to like be able to get to. That it's kind of like Elden Ring, like because I have a jump, I can get to it, and then I find a chest there, and I'm like, oh, I guess that's what I was supposed to do, and it wasn't very clear in the like the design of the architecture, I guess.
If there are things like part of, like Ed said, if there are things that are like part of architecture that you can climb, they're usually yellow, but you can climb most like vertical rock surfaces, but you can't you can't see the handholds.
But I think the problem is you can't climb all of them. There's no like consistent rule.
You can't climb all of them. But like if you're running through a world and there is a plateau that absolutely is not outside the realm of the game world, and you want to get to the top of that, 99% of the time there are climbable surfaces that you can't see. You can climb them, or you can scan them, and then you can see them. They appear as like yellow lines, and you'll be shocked when you see how many like actual different pathways there are up a wall. It's almost like looking behind the curtain. It's like if you were playing Breath of the Wild and you could scan, and it would show you all of the points that the developers have put that allow you to climb on things. It's almost like that. But yeah, there's way more of the stuff that you can climb on in this game. Also, a lot of the like little like puzzle areas, dungeons, whatever you want to call them, or tombs. They're almost like little Tomb Raider tombs, right?
Yeah, they kind of are.
I've done several of those in the game. They all feel way more organic and
okay.
like,
I was just about to ask about that.
Yeah, they're you can just kind of stumble across them and going into these places, and because of the fact that not everything is highlighted for you, it feels way more of like experimental. And then when you unlock the glider, that adds another layer to it. So
and they like, still have like the cauldrons from the first game that are probably more neither have I. So they still have those, but they do have like those. It's just like I found one that was just under a waterfall. I just saw a waterfall and I was like, oh, that's interesting. What's over here? There was a question mark on the map, but like whatever. And I went there and I dove under the waterfall, and all of a sudden I was in this cave system, and it brought me out into another section of the Daunt or whatever. And so like there is like cool little like tomby kind of things, like what Nick said.
Yeah. And like that first tall neck that you have to go up to is like there's a whole other component to it that wasn't in the first game, like where you have to like scale this like broken down satellite, and you have to like manipulate it and turn on the repower the generator.
It's a SETI dish.
Yeah.
It's like the SETI group, yeah. I mean that stuff is that's I still really like that stuff. Like, oh, I've been to Zion Canyon and I saw Angel's Landing, which I hiked. And I tried to climb up to Angel's Landing. Like Katie's sitting next to me, we did the hike together. I tried to climb, but I could get most of the way there, but I couldn't actually get on top of Angel's Landing itself. It's like a very thin section of the rock. And I was a little disappointed at that, but like the fact that I recognized that it was Zion Canyon when I first got there is pretty cool.
Yeah, and long story short, I am really excited to like fully explore this world, and I wish there was more hours in the day because I would love to be able to actually split my time between this and Elden Ring, for different reasons. Obviously, I'm probably going to focus more on Elden Ring until that's done, whenever that is. But I'm going to try and keep up with this because at least a little bit. Like, for every like 5 hours I play Elden Ring, I want to get at least an hour in of this, if at all possible.
Oh god.
Because it's good. It's very good.
Me personally, I mean, I really liked the first Horizon, but I guess one of the sticking points that I just did not enjoy about the original game was the grind for resources when it comes to crafting and upgrading your
Same
equipment.
thing.
Yeah, so they improved that significantly.
Okay.
And how they improved that was you have your what you can hold at a time. So like the healing items, right? That was my biggest problem, is that every time I'd get like my ass whooped by a monster, I'd have to go like pick a bunch of healing items. And so you have the stuff you can hold, the stuff that's in your pouch, and the stuff that's in your stash. And so you can hold like 10 healing items, and then you can refill that from your pouch. And you can have like up to like 20 to 30 healing items, and then you can have stuff in your stash that you can go back to the town and get from. And it's the same thing with like with traps and potions and stuff like that. So
Like,
that
it's like Bloodborne blood vials or something.
right. So I'd say like they improved that element a lot, I think.
Honestly, I thought of it as kind of the same. Ed's right. I was thinking of it kind of the same because probably because I just don't remember how much of that worked in the first one because it's been so long. I don't even remember if you had did you not have a stash in the first game back like at camps and stuff?
I don't remember.
Not really.
I
no,
I
you
don't
just
think so.
you just held on to everything.
You do
Yeah.
spend a lot of time picking stuff up, so that is definitely not really. I don't think that aspect of it has been improved a whole lot, but they do make it so that you're not constantly
and
running out of stuff.
and you still like you don't get the nice easy animation to pick things up when you're like riding a machine. It's like it stops you and you pick up things and you have to keep going. So that is kind of annoying, I'd say. I will
really
say
wish
that
this
like
game just picked stuff up as you like ran over it.
yeah,
Because
the
stopping to,
the
like,
core like materials that you need, like the healing items and then the little like pieces of wood, they're so available in the world that like when you're on foot, you kind of just like naturally kind of pick them up as you run around.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Vincent Graves in chat says there's an option called Easy Loot you can turn on, so you don't have to worry about quote breaking pieces off.
Well, say I want to break pieces off. Like breaking pieces off of machines is part of the appeal to me. Like I like strategically
Oh.
trying to like shoot pieces off of enemies. I just want to be able to not have to stop and hit triangle when I walk up to something to pick it up because
Yeah.
it's like Brad talking about going from The Last of Us to Last of Us Part 2 where they had the option where she just starts grabbing shit when she's near it. I
Yeah,
wish
yeah,
this game had that so bad.
Yes. Hey, yeah. I mean,
Real quick, this is maybe last thought for me. This game totally has. I just learned how to play it. There's like it's like a mini game called Machine Strike.
yeah.
It's like a fucking board game with like pieces and it's like a chessboard, but with like obviously Horizon themed rules and whatnot. And you have to collect chess pieces throughout the world that are shaped like machines that had different stats and abilities and whatnot that you play, and that shit is going to be fucking addictive. That's some triple triad shit right there.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
good.
so
That's
it's a chessboard, and then you also have like height to the squares, and so some
Squares
like
have elevation.
there's mountain and then hill and then grassland, and different like monsters have more ability, like stronger attacks on certain land types.
If you
and
position them on a mountain, they may get +1 attack or whatever to the enemies
and
around.
and the monsters like have like better defense if you're attacking them head on, but if you attack them from the side or from behind, it's better. Like they do more damage, and some monsters have like weak points on the side, and some monsters have weak points from behind, and
I just
it's
finished the
super neat.
tutorial for that, and like when I finally give myself to this game, I'm gonna spend a lot of time playing Machine Strike.
Yeah,
When you
It's-
completely
it's-
disrobe and
When I completely disrobe
When
this
you
game.
when you've cleansed yourself and stand before it nubile.
Exactly. Real quick, we didn't really answer the question earlier, and we're gonna roll into questions here in a second. So I didn't actually answer Drunken Merchant's question about how soon should an open world game give you access to the full map. Does anybody have any opinions on this? Like,
I mean,
think
it
it
really
depends.
depends.
Yeah, I think it depends on the gameplay loop. Like if the gameplay loop is like maybe not the gameplay loop, but the gameplay itself, right? If the combat is strong and they're like like introducing you to new things, but you're still having like kind of fun along the way, then it doesn't really matter to me how if it's like a couple hours versus like 30 minutes. Like I'd say like Pokemon Arceus is like it's terrible at this because the core
yes, it is.
the core loop of like throwing a Pokeball is like neat or whatever, but it's not like it's not as addicting, I guess, as maybe like the Elden Ring like combat is, right?
It's not 50-hour game addicting.
That is an understatement of the year.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but that's what I mean is like Elden Ring is almost like Elden Ring's combat is almost to the point where it doesn't need to put you out into the open world immediately because it's just it's like Dark Souls combat, so it's very
It
engaging.
stands on its own. It's good.
But,
It's good
but
no matter what
Pokemon could have put you in the open world much faster, and it would have been way better, right?
Yeah.
And so like Horizon, I had fun in the tutorial, and I was still like enjoying the Daunt a little bit. But if I could have gone right into the full open world from the beginning, I think, or not maybe from the beginning, but after that first tutorial, it would have been better for me.
I do think it's important to, especially if you're going to isolate the player for a certain amount of time for story reasons or for tutorial reasons, whatever it is, that like if it's an open world game and you want people to feel like they're playing an open world game, that area that you're being limited to should be big enough that it doesn't feel like you're being held back.
Like the Witcher, like the Witcher 3, like they did that. Like White Orchard was a smaller version of the open world, and you kind of got introduced to the concepts. And the Daunt is kind of like that with Horizon, but you have a whole 2-hour like segment beforehand where you're going through a very linear section of the game, and then
Luckily, that linear section of the game was very interesting from a story perspective.
Yeah,
so it didn't bother me.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's Horizon Forbidden West. I'll probably come back and talk about this in 6 years after I finish Elden Ring, because it's great. It's great. It's another great fucking video game.
We got 2 big Game of the Year contenders that came out within a week of each other, I think.
For some might even say 3. Dying Light 2 is pretty dope.
Yeah.
I finished that game. That game ends badly.
It ends very
that
badly.
World is fun.
What a strong start though to the year. Like
Holy shit,
Pokemon
like,
Legends, Dying Light 2, like
where
I
do
mean,
we even go
some
from
good
here?
stuff. Yeah.
Nobody on this podcast has even talked about Sifu yet because nobody's played it, but I fully intend to.
Yeah, I do too. For sure.
don't.
Fine time.
All right.
Now we're
All right.
entering the era of Babylon's fall. Things are gonna get and Stranger
In
of
Triangle-
Paradise.
In Triangle Strategy, maybe?
Oh God,
Things are
we're
gonna
really
get
gonna.
dark.
Things are gonna get dark. That's fine.
It's okay. We've
All
got
right,
Ghostwire though. It's okay.
Triangle
let's
Strategy
not
review embargo lifted.
I-
It's positive.
Oh,
I think
Brad.
Strangers of Paradise might actually be like a low key hit.
Maybe.
We'll see.
Maybe.
Brad. I played Triangle Strategy on my lunch break today, and I switched to Japanese voice acting. And my ears aren't necessarily tuned well enough to like what makes good Japanese voice acting versus bad Japanese voice acting. So even if it's bad, I was like, oh my God, this is so much better. I'm not
you're
constantly distracted by like how awful, because you tried to prepare me for how bad the English voice acting was. I was not ready. It is bad. Like
only certain characters are super
like
bad.
Resident
Some are
Evil
fun.
1 1996 levels of
Okay,
bad.
it's not like that.
It felt like that to me. So
Somewhere
switching
in
into
between.
Japanese really helps. I finished a battle today, and I might actually end up trading in Pokemon to play Triangle Strategy. I don't know. I'm gonna try and get through the entire demo and then make a decision because, like you said, that progress carries over into the final game. But I'm enjoying it so far now that I'm not constantly focused on how terrible the voices sound. All right, I have a question from a listener, and I wanna pose this question, because I think it is a legitimate question, but it's a dangerous question. I think. This is Elden Ring or Souls related, and it is the zeitgeist. I guess this is the thing that people are constantly debating, and I don't know how we want to approach the question, but I'm gonna pose it. Rain Spider asks, "Do you think From Software should add difficulty options in their games?"
Oh
Yeah,
god,
sure.
this
Why not?
combo, come on.
Okay, we gotta be. I want to be careful with this combo because obviously some people feel very passionately about this one way or the other, and I think a lot of people's answer to this question is not going to land well with the people on the opposite side, right? It's just some people think absolutely not, some people like absolutely totally should. I don't know how we want to address this. Brad seems to have an idea. What are you thinking, Brad?
I generally hate difficulty modes options because they're usually not handled very well. Like they feel very artificial. They're not very interesting. But I do like when a game has like a lot of good, smart accessibility options. And I think maybe a Souls game could benefit from something like if someone wanted to turn on the option to maybe not have to do a corpse run, when they died to get their souls. I mean, sure, whatever. That's fine, I think.
That was part
You
of the
know?
rest of their question was like this conversation's kind of separate from accessibility options, which they should definitely do, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I would argue that I think accessibility options are way more important than difficulty. I think I'm not trying to I'm not trying to gatekeep, I'm not trying to say anything, but the whole point of Souls games is they're supposed to be difficult. They are not supposed to be easy. And I think you can do things to lighten the load that don't necessarily make it easy. It's one of those things where, oh yeah, it's very simple to just give the bosses less health or have them be a little slower or something like that. But then I don't know. Like I don't want to say I don't want to take away someone from having a good time. If introducing that functionality is that important, then sure. I don't know.
There's been a lot of people.
I don't want to.
A lot of people have said about Elden Ring specifically that this is the most accessible Souls game, and I think a lot of people interpreted that as this is the easiest Souls game, when in fact it's not. But I think the big difference being because it's so open, you have the freedom to
You have
go somewhere else. If
You
you're
can
hitting a wall,
RPG the fuck out of it.
yeah,
can
you have
RPG
more tools to deal with any situation.
yeah,
But
but the actual
they added-
combat itself is difficult, and
They added checkpoints. They have these things called I don't know what they're
I forgot what they're
Stakes,
called.
Those
Stakes of
statues.
America.
but like I noticed like
Stakes
on
of America.
particularly nasty like dude, it's been a while since I had a site of grace and I get to a boss and I get like pounded. I'm like, oh man, that's gonna be a pretty shitty run. I see that option, of like, oh
Right.
wow, that's pretty smart. They put one of these checkpoints in and I don't have to do that nasty boss run. This is good. This is
there any, like-
accessible.
Is there like any indication that you're like bound to one of those besides just like you see it there and you know?
They're very
or-
hard to notice. I
Yeah,
just
they
almost
are.
never notice it.
I don't even know if you have to actually activate it or if
No,
it's
you
just
don't.
like-
No,
You
you
don't.
don't. You don't.
Yeah.
They're just nearby.
um,
Which is cool in its own right, I guess. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I mean, and this is just another thing they added because of the situation like that. Like in a normal Souls game, a run might be 10 minutes or whatever, but in this game, you could go like an hour potentially without, being at a bonfire, whatever it's called, and that could potentially be a problem. That would increase frustration, unnecessarily frustrating. But like Nolan said, and there was even an interview this week about this exact topic. With what's the lead designer's name? Miyazaki. About this, and he was talking about these games specifically. Like his idea of this game was he wants people to experience that like rush of serotonin they get when they triumph over hardship, I think is the way he put it. And I don't want any game to be I don't want the game to like gatekeep people out. Like I don't want people to feel like they can't approach a game, obviously. I feel like there should be steps taken, but here's the thing. By adding difficulty options, you then you run the risk of people like lowering the difficulty, playing it, and then not seeing the point, like not being like, what is so special about this experience? Because I think if you add that, you are taking away some of what makes it special. Which is, for some people they may not give a shit, but like it may make the difference between someone being like, this is maybe the greatest game I've ever played, and then other people playing it on like easy or whatever or a lower difficulty and being like, I don't get what all the hubbub is about. Like, what is the point? Like,
It's
why
definitely
is it
harder
everyone
to
making such a big deal
balance.
out of it?
It's definitely
Nick,
harder to balance, right? Like the game, like if the game was like if it took me 13 instead of 16 swipes to kill this boss, let's say, like all of a sudden that kind of changes the way you're playing the game. Like my heart starts racing when I get really close to killing a boss because I know like, oh, I'm so close, and if I fuck up, I fuck up, And
people want to. He wants people to feel their heart racing.
yeah,
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 but-
that is
exactly.
the
but
feeling
you're
he wants people.
skipping out on the other part, and I don't think you're doing this intentionally, but you're skipping out on the other part of that interview, in which
I may
Miyazaki
not be familiar with
specifically.
the other part of the interview, so I apologize.
Okay, well, the other part of the interview was that he was saying that he lamented the difficulty of his games. I'm just saying.
He
Yeah.
lamented the difficulty of his games.
Yes.
Sounds like
I would.
Yeah, interesting. Could be
I don't
a
know.
translation thing too, right?
Could be.
Well,
I
I'm
mean,
sure,
it
but-
could
I'm sure
be.
he didn't say just one sentence, but
yeah.
Yeah.
maybe drop a link to
We are pulling quotes out of a larger thing, and I do admit that I do not have the full context of the interview.
I mean, I think the answer here is to have not difficulty modes, but as Nolan suggested, difficulty tweaks and accessibility options.
Accessibility. That's what we're saying. Accessibility options and difficulty modes are two totally different things. And like,
you got to think of difficulty modes as like a package, and accessibility tweaks are just modifiers, just small
being able
things.
to customize your experience.
Yeah.
Right.
Through different various
me
settings.
turning
or
off
whatever.
the thirst and hunger meter in Subnautica did not make that less of an amazing game.
Yes, it did. You guys suck.
By the way, Robin just played 90
I know
hours
I
of
had a
Subnautica
better
with
time with
Survivor mode
Subnautica
on.
than you guys did because you're cowards.
You might be right. You might be right, Crispy.
One thing I will
Um,
say is, like I said, I can see some advantages to it, and something I didn't really bring up when I talked about the game originally, but Dodgeball Academia has sliders for damage output and damage taken, and you can literally increase your damage that you do by 100%. So when you attack the enemy, you just do a shit ton more damage, and you can actually reduce the damage they do by like 100% if you wanted. Like you could make them do no damage to you, and then that begs the question: well, what's the point of that? Maybe for shits and giggles or something, but then it kind of defies the point of playing the game. What's the point of playing a game where it's all about trying to dodge balls if you don't have to dodge them anymore?
I do think
you, Neo?
You are right, but I do think there is something in this question only seems it almost always only seems relevant when we're talking about Souls games specifically, and I'm not entirely sure what the reason for that is.
They're hard.
But like
they're hard because they're hard. Like that's the point of them. They're not supposed to be easy.
Yeah, and I think it is really just it really is a case of like the artist, the designer, wanting something very specific from the people playing his game, because that for whatever reason is special to him. Like it seems like that, like all of his games are like this. He wants people's hearts to be racing when they're playing this game. He wants people to feel that intense satisfaction. And if I walked in and wiped the floor with every boss that I fought on like the first try, I feel like I would be kind of like, okay, I don't get it. I mean, there are other things about the game that are exciting. Like exploration is still going to be exciting, and seeing kind of the lore and like just that feeling of like discovering the world. That sense of discovery will still be there, but without the stakes being as high. You know, I do feel like something will be missing, and I feel like that is unique to these kinds of games.
Cleft, to that point, the grinding of levels, the accumulation of souls or runes in this case, that is the difficulty slider. That is, you now have souls that you can give yourself more health. You can give yourself more damage output. That is the point of them. The point is you are able to do something to make the game easier. You could, I'm not a speedrunner, but in most of these games, you can generally get to the final boss pretty easy at fucking level 1 and fight him at level 1. But to do that is
With
very
Guitar
fucking
Hero
hard. You can.
controllers.
Yeah. With bananas.
Yeah.
Bananas.
But that's what I'm saying is like you can do things. That whole point of this game is it gives you the ability to make the game easier.
I mean, I feel like the whole point of an RPG is like to like make yourself stronger to overcome like your challenge.
I mean, if you take souls out of the equation, I do feel like I don't know. I'm just pulling game out of my ass here. Like Final Fantasy VII Remake, did that have difficulty options?
Yeah,
Like
I think
did
so.
it? I mean, to me, like RPGs in general seem kind of silly to have difficulty options because the whole point is
triangle strategy
choices.
it's done very poorly.
Making choices to increase your impact on the world is the whole point of an RPG, right? So like, I don't know. And to be fair, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this question necessarily. And I know some people feel very intensely that there should be difficulty options because some people just feel like they're excluded, like they can't play it. And I don't want any game to do that. Like I feel like everybody should be able to experience the brilliance of Elden Ring without feeling like they picked it up and then feel like they've, thrown their money away because they can't play it. Like they don't feel like they can't get over those humps.
Yeah, like the other aspect is that if you're a developer, like, and you've spent 50,000 hours developing this game, like you want people to see as much of this game as much of your work as possible.
Right.
So if you're making your game like way too hard and preventing people from experiencing that content, that kind of eats it, don't you think?
But I have seen, and there are different design philosophies, and I do think maybe this discussion specifically about difficulty options or accessibility options for lowering the difficulty might be more applicable to maybe a game like Sekiro. That game was brutally hard, and there's no wiggle room. The RPG options really at your disposal. Like it was just like co-op. That game was literally you had to get good. That was the only way to beat that game. And I've seen a lot of people reacting to like. There's a lot of people saying like the people who said that Elden Ring is the most accessible game in the series. I want to talk to you because that's bullshit. I think there's a lot of confusion being like nobody said this was easier. They just said it was more accessible, and that accessibility comes from the freedom it gives you, like to make that experience your own. If you die to a boss 3 times in a row, you have every right to just be like, all right, fuck you, I'm coming back later.
We're just talking about Elden Ring now.
I know. I mean, you're right. I feel like we've done this question justice. There's no right or wrong answer. I guess the debate will live on, but those are, I guess, our thoughts on it, where we're coming from. Let's see. I did, to be fair, I did tell people who submitted questions this week that we're going to be talking a lot about Elden Ring and Horizon, so maybe ask us questions about those things. Question Mark would like to know, and I don't know how to answer this question necessarily because I'm not super stats driven, but he says, what is your favorite build in any Souls game? I feel like this is a question for maybe Brad or Crispy. I don't know. I don't think about builds all that much.
I was always fond of just Faith Strength, like Paladin build.
That's what I'm going now, and I really like it, but especially in this one because I feel like I'm constantly, like in Dark Souls 2, I did a Faith build, and I was just throwing lightning bolts the entire time. It felt so overpowered, but here there's definitely situations where it's like range is good, and there are like fights where like no range is bad. I gotta get in close, and I've been using like like I said before, all aspects of my kit, and it feels really good. And but you're always jealous of the stuff you can't use. So I mean,
Or like
fuck,
I just
I
spent
don't
20
know.
hours playing this weapon set or
I've
the skill set that I really enjoy, and then I see a co-op partner come in. I'm like, oh, that's cool. How did you do that? And then you're just like, well, I've spec'd myself in a totally opposite
shit.
direction. You know
I've
what I
always
mean?
Yeah.
liked the idea of magic builds, but like they never seemed good until now.
Yeah,
They
I
never
like
seemed
it.
like worthwhile. I saw a fucking video. I'm gonna talk about Elden Ring for a second. I saw a video the other day that was the character had 80 intelligence and like 40 mind or something like that.
Damn.
And he walks into a boss fight and he just casts the like Magica Terra spell, the like AoE like buff spell, and then just like Kamehameha wave like shoots a beam at the boss and just like one hits him. I was like,
Shit.
that's what you can
Nice.
do with magic in this game. It's crazy.
What
I've
made it
always
great
liked
is
the-
Amazing.
I've always liked the-
That's easy mode for you. You just pay somebody to play the game for 100 hours to make it too easy. You know?
I've always liked the like battle mage kind of stuff, like a sword and a wand, or like a lot of times.
That's because you have commitment issues, Ed.
Yeah.
Same boat,
You should
Ed.
just be a wizard.
I need to go tell my wife that I've been dating for 12 years that I have commitment issues.
You have commitment issues, Ed.
It took you 12 years to get married, man.
It didn't.
No, it didn't.
Yeah,
but-
he's not freshly married. But I'm kind of in the same boat as Ed. Like I'm using magic for like the first time, but I'm still not quite comfortable completely letting go of my melee weapon. Like
I haven't got
I'm
the
using an axe
staff
now.
yet.
And I love it.
Yeah.
I need a staff. I have
also-
like two different spells, but I need a staff in order to use it.
Also, this is like the first Souls game where if you're like primarily magic, you can still use melee weapons and not feel like a fucking idiot because
Yeah.
the game makes sense now, you know?
It's beautiful. It's fucking beautiful. Like I didn't think that build existed really. And I just kind of stumbled into it. I started as an astrologer, started using magic and, really getting comfortable with that, and then started, putting every once in a while putting some points into like strength or dexterity, and I'm rolling with a good solid
You don't
good
have
balance.
you don't have to be like Gandalf anymore, where he like has his staff and his sword and he just holds the sword for like 9 hours but doesn't ever actually cut anybody with it. Like,
Wow, I'm gonna be thinking about that the
That's
next
true.
time I watch Lord of the Rings.
he's just
I
like,
never know.
charge, and doesn't do anything with it. It's just like, look at this cool sword I have. Like,
Wow, never thought about that way. Let's see. Next question from Lord Trapula says, all right, we're getting weird now. If video games could emit smells in real life, what would Elden Ring and Horizon smell like?
mildew,
Rotting flesh.
body odor.
I'm going to assume
No,
all
man,
of those
it
things
smells like
describe Elden Ring.
nature.
Elden Ring?
Elden Ring smells like nature.
Elden Ring would smell like crimson rot, and I imagine that smells like bloody feces.
Wow,
Only
that's
in
descriptive.
certain areas. Certain areas.
Well, yeah, it depends on where you're at, but for sure.
So
those
Morn
areas-
probably smells pretty
It
bad.
smell like a
for a
swamp.
while.
Yeah, like a bog.
The Rhea Lucaria smells like BO because it's a bunch of fucking magic nerds in a school.
I mean, Horizon definitely would smell like BO, right? Like, there's no way they're wearing deodorant in the future there.
That's positive. I was gonna go with Horizon would smell like motor oil or something.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
Maybe
that
like
too, yeah.
new car smell, really?
new car.
That's
smell.
true. Maybe the reason they all wear like the parts of the machine is to cover up the body odor. It's like old powdered wigs of the olden days.
Oh shit! You know how you can get like deodorant and body spray that's supposed to smell like, I don't know,
Like
a tire
man
or
musk
a
or
car
whatever,
or
yeah.
like something manly
Mechanic-
stuff or whatever.
musk of
Where do I get
mechanic.
tire
Wrench.
deodorant?
They're literally just wearing all of the stuff that
Yeah.
would admit that. So yeah, that's it. That's it.
60%
You
of
figured
the
it out.
time works every time.
You figured it out. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Elden Ring would smell pretty bad. Like, I don't want to go with like Crispy's level of weird shit,
want-
like bloody.
I want to
feces,
smell.
but-
I want to smell honey pop too.
right,
I
next.
think we know what that smells like.
Next question.
What the-
Let's see.
Very
this isn't
fishy.
Lord Dracula. Shit, where did this? Hold on, where did this question come from?
Chris Davis.
Coca. Oh god, what did I mean? Coca Koala says, "How dusty or messy is your home or gaming area, and how often do you clean it?"
Not often enough.
Ever?
Not
Anybody?
often
Anybody?
No, I
Mine's
definitely
pretty-
clean. It's just nowhere near often enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to wait until for me it's like when I'm playing on a Saturday morning because I have a window just to the right of my TV, and if the light comes through the window and hits the TV and I can see the dust on the TV, I'm like, it's time. The moment has come.
Yeah.
But yeah, mine's
So
pretty dusty.
we were sharing our like workspace setups at work this week, and I took a picture of my desktop. And my desktop has like a couple amiibos, and like I have this Rubik's cube that I fiddle with while I'm talking or whatever.
Solved Rubik's cube. You noticed that?
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely solved.
Show off.
And then I took a picture of what everything below my desk, and it's just chaos of wiring.
Oh yeah.
He's like, there's just like a blanket of wires that are draped over my legs under my table.
I mean, I'm serious. Like it's pretty insane. And the other day, I was in an interview and I kicked my power cord out of my wall socket because it's right below my foot, and I disconnected from the interview because of it.
Nice.
Damn, that's intense. All right. I think that's it for questions this week. So I think we can go. Oh my God, Ed, you need some cable ties. Look at that shit.
That's pretty normal looking.
That's not bad. There's far worse out there, believe me.
Oh well, yeah, of course. There's like fire hazards and shit. I don't know if that quite crosses that line, but I do recommend cables.
They did
sometimes.
react. They did react with the fire emoji to my Slack message.
There we go.
Nice.
There it is. All right. So
Like your setup is fire, yo.
Zach,
That's what I choose to take it as. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. All right.
Like that's awesome.
Let's wrap this show up with the 4-player minute, guys. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for your questions, as always. If you want to submit a question on a future show, you have two options. You can email us at questions@4playernetwork.com, or you can go to Discord at discord.gg/4player. When you're in there, we have a podcast channel set up with a submit a question thread, and I start a thread every week for the next episode, so you can submit your questions there. So those are your two options. Get them in. Whenever they pop into your head, just get them out there so we can have them planned before the show. And now let's wrap up with the 4-player minute. I proposed a new thing earlier, and I forgot to bring this back up before we started the segment. Do y'all remember the idea?
Yes.
You said final thought.
Do you want to do that, or do you want to do classic 4-player minute? We
I'm
have 6
down
people
with
here.
it.
I
I
mean,
know Brad's gonna be
can.
like,
Oh, Brad hates
I haven't really thought about what my final thought's gonna be.
well, how about just pick one of the things you had planned for your 4-player minute and make that your 4-player minute?
That would
Because
make
the
it
danger
you could have a complex 4-part thought.
A
damn.
complex
God.
4-part.
No.
All right. My final thought
Get
is
to the point of this.
my final thought is March. We're in March. There's a lot of interesting games coming out. Babylon Falls out, and it has like a peak of like 600 people playing or some shit like that. It's out today.
I heard it's real bad.
Well, we'll see. I mean, you would think there'd
you
be
gonna
more
play it?
reviews, but there's not many. I'm not gonna play it. No, it is not my type of game. I feel for Platinum. I hope they make it through this. I feel a little bad for Square Enix because they have this, but then they have Stranger of Paradise come in like right after, and I don't think that one's gonna do well. And
This does not feel like a flagship year for Square Enix. Unless they get Final Fantasy 16 out before the end of the year, I think.
yeah, Triangle Strategy is also Square Enix. That
Oh,
got
yeah.
some reviews, and they're pretty decent. But I don't think the hype that was there for like Octopath Traveler is definitely not there for this. So but there's some Nintendo people who are sad they're not playing Elden Ring. They'll probably pick this up, but I don't know. Ultimately, I think the thing I'm most excited about in March though is Ghostwire Tokyo. I think that game looks sick, and I don't think it's
God.
gonna score like.
Wait, I thought Ghostwire Tokyo was May.
It's end of March, I think.
Yeah, March 27th.
No, I'm not gonna be done with Elden Ring by then.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah, you
Horizon.
Also, Kirby sucks. That's my final thought.
Shit. Thank you, Brad. Look at that. That was
Mhm.
great. Chris Davis, final thoughts?
March.
4-player minute. I'm still gonna call this 4-player minute because that's technically what it is. We're just not doing 4 things. Final thought.
I mean, I don't have a final thought. I actually wanted to do a really, really quick 4-player minute.
Damn it, Chris Davis.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. My first hype is for Ghostwire Tokyo. That game looks fucking great. I can't wait to play it. My second hype is for Agent Intercept, a game I learned about the other day. It's a kind of a spiritual successor to Spy Hunter, and it looks like a lot of fun. My sweat is to complete my Game of the Year video. Due to some personal issues, I did not get around to actually finishing it. I've got it written. It's almost done. I'll have it out probably before Sunday. And my fuck you, Russia. You know what you did.
Oh, they know what they did. What they're doing.
Well,
Oh, what's going on with Russia?
Yeah, not much. Just some really shitty stuff.
Bad.
I've been on vacation
Bad
for a couple
stuff.
weeks. What happened?
All right. On that note, Crispy, how about you? What's your final thought? 4-player minute. Come on, bro.
Oh, I don't have any thoughts. I'm just a pretty face. My final thought, my 4-player minute. I just, man, game design, right? Crazy thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's
For sure.
It's been
Hard.
a long time. It's been a long time since I've been like genuinely really excited about a game. Endwalker I was excited about, but I don't know. That kind of doesn't feel like the same thing.
Pesky
But
MMO.
yeah. But like a game that I'm like, I'm gonna sit down and I'm just gonna do this like in my room by myself for dozens of hours, and like this is gonna be the thing I think about forever. It's been a long time since I felt that way, but I definitely feel that way now about Elden Ring. It is very difficult to get through a work day.
I'm so glad you
like-
said Elden Ring. I thought you were going to say Magic the Gathering. I
Oh,
was
Magic,
really worried.
Magic the Gathering. It's the only one that's ever truly been there for me. This is for you. No, Elden Ring and like playing it's one of those. I don't know, man. Like I'm not a game designer, right? I'm not a programmer. I dabble a little bit with like ideas of how to make scenarios and games for people just because I do a lot of DMing in D&D, and that's a subject that is interesting to me, like how you go about designing this kind of stuff. And it's something I've been thinking about a lot while I've been playing Elden Ring, and it is honestly gobsmacking like how many little things this game does like effortlessly that it seems like nobody else in the world nobody else in the world who's making AAA video games is even coming close, and to not just feel like, yes, this is a really cool game that I enjoy playing, but like this is a game that is teaching me something about like why I like playing games, why other people like playing games, and like how somebody translates those desires into fun content, like, oh, I'm losing it, man. I'm losing it. It's just fucking
That's
beautiful.
well-
It's just
well
fucking
said.
beautiful. Like it's the first game I played in a long time where I'm like, I'm really learning something. Like I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's well said. I totally agree. Even as someone who doesn't dabble in like that kind of creation, it's easy to recognize how refreshing this is, and how it's, and just trying to wrap my head around everything that had to interlock, everything that had to work together to make this possible, blows my mind.
Yeah.
But man, if this inspires people to like really experiment and push outside the box as far as open world game design, kind of like Breath of the Wild did, kind of the way the original Dark Souls did, the next 10 years could be crazy. So,
Sure.
Ed,
Yes.
your turn.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of said it earlier, but I'm pretty cool that 2022 is just coming out the door swinging. Like I think 2021 had some great games, don't get me wrong, but to get like these two like more AAA games just come out like just going for it, and they're both great, and they're both great for their own reasons, and they like to between Horizon and Elden Ring, I will be occupied for the next like 6 months
Yeah.
of the year. And
It
that's
makes me
super,
wonder what we have to look forward to in the back half, right? Because
I
there's
mean,
always big stuff, but it's like
it's super exciting.
God of
So
War,
after this.
Starfield, and Breath of the Wild too.
I know it's like this is gonna be a jam packed year, and like it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
I'm having a lot of fun. I totally echo Crispy's sentiment of like I feel like these games, both of them, have reminded me of why I love video games so much.
You know, I play a lot of games and I get excited about a lot of games, but not on the same level. Like Elden Ring especially is definitely kind of
Special.
triggering something different in me than most games that I play and get excited about. So, you know, it's cool. It's great. It's a good feeling. Good problem to have. Nolan, your turn.
Final thoughts. Elden Ring's good.
Yes.
I've yelled more in the past 3 days than many the past months playing this fucking game. But it is the quintessential, it's a common like meme that what is that? It's from that one anime where it's like the guy and he's like, "Oh, is this a bird?" It's like the
Oh yeah.
meme.
Oh yeah.
What kind of dog
Yeah.
is this? This is a
Yeah,
tortoise.
exactly. But no, it's the whole like it's like the butterfly, but it says a fair death in a video game, and the guy's like, "Is this bullshit?" And that is like essentially like what Elden Ring is. And I know it. And I yell at the game and I'm like, "Oh, fuck you." But I know that I dodged way too early on that attack. I knew I did. It's all on me. And that's kind of one of the things I love most about these games is I really do feel when I die or get hit, it's never bullshit.
Yeah.
I always made
Yeah.
a mistake. I always didn't see it coming or like I thought they were going to do this attack, but they changed it up and did it everyone. It's always my fault. And
When I was fighting Margit and he would like jump up and do that hammer attack, I was like every time he'd jump, I go 1, 2, dodge, like out loud. I'd say that out loud.
Sometimes
you
that
have
shit
to
helps.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so I'm looking forward to dying and yelling "fuck you" many more times,
Yes.
and trying again. So
Absolutely. Good
Oh
thought.
yeah.
You know, it's funny. We didn't talk about it when we were actually talking about the game earlier, but when I was co-oping with Crispy and we were fighting the dragon, it's Crispy and Green Toast, by the way. Shout out to Green Toast as well for helping me take down that dragon.
Oh, what's up, Green Toast?
But when we were co-oping, we were fighting that dragon, and I've noticed it with several bosses, Godric included. Anything that uses fire attacks, because the world is open, and they use these like fire breathing attacks or spray attacks or whatever. Because it's open, and you can literally just run in the opposite direction as far as you can go, or you can jump on your horse and ride away as fast as you can. The range on these fire attacks is so obscenely large and fast. Like it's impossible to it's almost impossible to outrun the fire. You have to be smart about your reaction to these fire attacks because your legs can't carry you away fast enough. You have to like think about it, which I think is just really another really fascinating way they've kind of like adapted to the bigger world. But anyways, sorry, that is not actually my final thought. My final thought is this: it is not Elden Ring related at all. I am 2 days away from watching the Batman, and I am so fucking excited for this movie. Elden Ring distracted me, but I'm very fucking excited for this movie.
The Batman.
The Batman getting good reviews.
The Batman.
Talked to a friend today who saw it on Wednesday night. Said he really liked it.
Who?
Marcus saw it. Said he really liked it.
really,
So yeah, I'm pretty fucking excited. And you know, I feel like this is like maybe the biggest like going to the movies kind of event that I've had in quite some time. So that's nice. I feel like I haven't really done something like that on this scale in quite some time, so that's cool. But yeah, I'm just pumped. Elden Ring, obviously, I'm looking forward to playing the shit out of Ring this weekend as like a distraction to get me through till Sunday when I go to the movies to see the Batman. So
Man.
the Batman. So I'm pretty hyped, man. A lot to be excited about right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to be excited about right now.
There's also a lot to be, stressed out about and concerned about.
Things are
obviously.
going pretty good.
Things in this bubble are going pretty all right. Outside of that bubble is pretty fucked up. Thanks, Crispy.
Sorry.
You know
For
what I
now,
meant.
Nick. For now.
I'm sorry.
Chris Davis didn't mention it when he talked about fuck Russia, but if you want to talk also about how that's also seeping into like every aspect of the world, we're talking about video games.
What's it do to the Batman?
Stalker 2 is that being developed in the Ukraine? I can't
It's in
remember where they're
Kyiv,
based.
yeah, the capital.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
So that
Also-
game has been obviously put on hold until.
Also,
God
don't
knows
forget
when.
about 4A games. They're over there too.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That is fucking terrible. Ugh.
Obviously, I think this goes without saying. This is. I feel like we should at least say our hearts go out to everyone in the Ukraine right now.
Yeah.
It's a really obviously fucked up situation.
I would also say that the citizens of Russia aren't exactly
Very true.
the villains here either. Most
Oh,
of
no,
them
no.
don't want to be fucking doing this shit.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
it's like if we here in Texas, like all of a sudden, our government decided to invade Canada, and we're just like, what? What?
So,
No.
so hold on. So I will also,
Or
say,
restrict women's bodily autonomy, or make
Or
it
that.
illegal to be trans.
the
Yeah.
big
Oh,
difference.
Oh my
Nick, I'll
god.
talk about that. But what I will say, Nick, is the big difference here is if we invade Canada, while not everyone who is in our military signed up to invade Canada, everyone in our military signed up to be in the military. In Russia, I don't know the exact percentage. I'm not an expert. Many of them are conscripts, though. You have to go into the military. Many of them don't want to be there. The U.S. military, there's no fucking draft anymore.
Right.
Like, I mean, and they could reenact it. Anyone who's in the military now chose to be. A lot of these people over there don't want to be doing this.
Yeah, and there's
And
a
that's
lot of
why I think
soldiers.
that's why you see
Like
a lot of
technology.
Mhm.
Technology in chat says, and this has been popping up a lot. A lot of soldiers over there had no idea what they were actually doing when they crossed the border.
Yeah.
So, it's a fucked up situation, and I just wanted to make sure we mention it on the podcast. Obviously, this is
for sure.
this is a podcast about video games, and it is not at all about serious stuff. And but I think it's important to acknowledge there's some fucked up shit happening in the world, and our thoughts and our hearts are with the people of the Ukraine. So, anyways, I hate to end on a
All right,
kind of.
I have a funny fuck you to kind of like close out.
This better be fucking
Yeah,
funny, Ed.
come on, bring it home, man.
Bring the
My-
levity.
My fuck you is to the Bluetooth receiver on my PC that can't reach my PS5 controller when I sit right over there.
Fuck that thing.
Like I have to I tested it out. I have to like hold it out with outstretched arms in order to play it, and that's how I would play Elden Ring on my PC.
I'm gonna
or on
guess
my
that's
TV
an
rather.
uncomfortable way to play.
It's somewhat uncomfortable, yeah. I've thought about like taking this chair and just rolling it back so I'm like closer to the couch.
There's got to be a
so-
way to fix that, like reflecting stuff or materials.
Yeah, I'll just go get a giant mirror. to
Mirrors
fix
or
my
something,
problem.
magnets, mirrors.
Put a
and
bunch
magnets, some
of wrap
combination thereof.
your
Yeah,
head in tinfoil.
I did think about getting like a 10-foot long USB-C cable to like connect to just run from here to here.
I've heard you can extend Bluetooth range by holding it to your chin for some reason. Have you tried holding the
No,
game controller
That,
to your
that's
chin?
that's all radio waves. That's not
Yeah.
just Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Well, then- I have no idea. Anyways, guys,
Your head
thank
acts
you for
like
listening.
as like an amplifier. Your skull does.
So that's not bullshit?
No,
It works.
you can do it
Absolutely
with
works.
your car if you
No,
use
so-
your little key fob. Yeah.
I've done that with my car, but I always thought that was just like I've been fooled, like people telling me this works, and it's
No.
really not. It's true at all.
No,
So
it's
Yeah.
physics, Nick.
Yeah.
shit.
Physics,
Learn
bitch.
something. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening. In 4playernetwork.com. Don't forget, check out our top 10 videos if you haven't already. They're out there. We'd love to hear from you guys on them. And maybe if we inspire anybody to just try out some of the games that we played and loved from last year that you haven't had a chance to try, it makes the whole thing worth it, and we'd love to hear from you. So Discord.gg/4Player is the place to be if you want to be a part of the community and hang out with us, talk about video games, hang out in that Elden Ring channel. That is the most active channel I've seen in a long time. But yeah, we'll be back next week with a new episode. In the meantime, guys, be safe, be good to each other, play video games. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.